IB Nation, what's going on? It's a recruiting hour here at the Irish Breakdown podcast. I want to thank you all so much. Before we get going here, you can like, share, subscribe to this podcast, hit that notification bell if you're listening to us on YouTube. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. We're going to be talking a lot of recruiting today because we just had the biggest recruiting weekend of the year for the Clemson game, which if you're not on the board at boards.irishbreakdown.com, me and Sean have put together an intel piece over the weekend that was just updated earlier this morning about pretty much a large volume of players that we've been able to get in touch with, people around them, so other sources to kind of feel out how the recruiting weekend went, obviously for this massive victory over Clemson this past weekend, 35-14. So impactful weekend. Also have a surprise interview for you all in the second part of this podcast, and then we'll finish up with the mailbag. I know there's a ton of questions already in the podcast here and in the live chat, and we thank you all so much. I've been starring before we even started this podcast. I've been starring questions. I am Ryan Roberts, Director of Scouting here at irishbreakdown.com, joined by Mr. Sean Davis, of course, recruiting analyst. So questions, throw them in the chat. We'll be getting to those later on, Sean. But, look, man, first and foremost, we're obviously here to do a job, right? We cover recruiting. We try to do it to the best of our abilities. I feel like we're doing a pretty darn good job. But at the core, we are Notre Dame fans, right? That's at the core. And Notre Dame just had a huge win this past weekend, 35-14, the best win that I can remember in my lifetime, if I'm being completely honest, man. Like, you dominated a number 4 team in the country convincingly. You won by 3 scores, and if anybody watched the football game, wasn't even that close. So, Sean, Brian on the message board said, usually you get 24 hours to kind of enjoy a victory. He changed it to 72 just because it's been such a dramatic victory. My question to you to get this podcast started before we really dive into recruiting, has it worn off on you, man? You still enjoying it a little bit?
Heck no. My chest is out even further. I'm talking that, you hear me? I think talking to the recruits kept us kind of engaged. Like, we didn't really haven't had an opportunity to really decompress because we've been in constant contact with recruits and their parents, ever since the game ended, and by it ended so late, it kind of went over into Sunday and Sunday night when most of them really were able to get back to us. No, I'm still high. It was like one of the greatest highs that a football game has ever given me as a Notre Dame fan. And I don't know when I'll come down. Yeah. I don't know when I'll come down. And look, this could not have gone any better. There is no Hollywood script that could have scripted out this weekend for the program and recruiting.
Yes.
Better than this weekend went. I promise you. Like, the adjectives that we have received from commits, targets, 23, 24, 25, and then their parents.
Sean, it's getting real, man. I mean, we have so much to talk about because, like you said, as if Notre Dame winning wasn't great enough, right? Yeah. We were on the live show until almost 3:00 in the morning, my time, but then the clock got pushed back. So it was like, oh, it's only 2. I'm like, no, we were on here for 3 hours. Like, we were on here for 3 hours, I promise. So it's and that was one of those times though where I'm like, I want to stay on, man. Like, I don't want to get off of here. Like, I'm just enjoying it, man. I'm just enjoying it. As a fan, it was fantastic. And like you said, being able to talk to these recruits before, during, and after this recruiting weekend. I mean, because I got a great vibe of like the kids that were coming in, excited to see him play Clemson, all that good stuff. It was like elation. It was like everyone was like, it was almost nostalgia. And it was weird because I'm like, it can't be nostalgia because you're not reliving anything, right? But like, these guys were just in a state where I'm just like, you had the best weekend of your life. And I heard things that were like electric, best visits that I've ever taken in my life, like a bunch of hyperbolic things, but you felt the energy when they were telling you, right? So I will say this again. We talked about this. Me and Sean have been working diligently over the last couple of days, getting you as much recruiting intel as possible. We're going to hit a lot of it today, but if you want to go for even more intel, boards@irishbreakdown.com, we had long list of just instant reactions. So it was, it was memorable, man. And we'll be hitting a lot of the visitors from this past weekend. We'll be talking about the particulars to their visit, how it went, what this means. We'll be talking a little bit also about what the overall class is going to potentially look like. Mm-hmm. Now, finishing, because we're a few weeks from the first signing day, Sean. So I mean, this class you're sitting at 23, only a couple spots left in the class. So I mean, the energy around the program right now, this is what we've been waiting for, right? The Freeman era. This is it. This is what we have been waiting for. So great weekend, Sean. Let's get into some of the key takeaways that we've had. So a lot to get into here, folks. So if you want some intel, some recruiting intel, you're in the right place. You're in the right place here. So, Sean, I think what everyone, and I've already seen a couple people ask about it, and it's like, come on, man, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it, of course. But people want to know about the Bowens visiting Notre Dame this weekend, right? Mm-hmm. So not talking about Drake Bowen, because he's there every single weekend. We should expect that at this point, right? Out of Indiana and Indiana, like he's there. Drake basically has a bunk bed in the team house, like he's always there. The two Bowens, though, that everyone wanted to hear how things went from were Peyton Bowen, of course, 2023 safety commit in the class, and Eli Bowen, 2024 cornerback targets for Notre Dame. And the reason that people want to know so much is that there's been a lot of things said about this recruitment, right? A lot of things said, especially about Peyton. You know, how committed is he? He's taken visits. What does this mean for Notre Dame? Is he going to go play with his brother? There's a lot of question marks. And we've kind of been pretty firm as far as we felt like going into the visit that he was very solid to Notre Dame. And the whole thing with the brother is like they've always been upfront as far as like Peyton's going to go with Eli on visits. Like it's just going to happen, right? It's going to happen. And they have talked in the past about potentially playing together on the next level, but that isn't like a foregone conclusion, right? If it happens, it's nice. It's really nice. It would be awesome. But speaking to Eli and speaking to people around the Bowen family and other sources, right? Like I don't think that it is like the end all be all package deal for the Bowen family. But the two updates we had on them, Sean, I spoke directly to Eli this morning, and I spoke to a couple people close to the Bowens and other people that were also on the trip. This is what I say about Peyton Bowen. Peyton was very engaged throughout the entire visit. He is very close right now with the Don Schuler, with Christian Gray, the other 2023 defensive backs. And we have heard consistently that, you know, playing video games, group chat, like he's locked in with Notre Dame, man. So I leave this visit still feeling very good about Peyton Bowen standing with Notre Dame. Again, like I'm not in the business of predicting how things end, but there is nothing right now for me that says decommitment candidate. Like it's just not there. And we'll be talking about this a lot until signing day. And if Peyton Bowen does end up with Notre Dame, which I think he will, if he does end up with Notre Dame, though, I will have a lot to say about some other media outlets who have been spewing a lot of bad information on this subject, okay? Because you talk to people close to Peyton, talk to people close to the Bowens, I should say, just in general, and some of these things are just flat out lies that get told about this family, about Peyton Bowen. So Peyton Bowen had a great visit. Sounds like everything went fantastic. Seeing the impact of Notre Dame beating a Clemson team, number 4 team in the country at home, I think it's also like if you need a solidifier, like put that cherry on the top, man. Like that's it right there. The other side, though, Sean, Eli Bowen. And I would love to hear your take on this because this is just my feel on the Eli Bowen recruitment so far. I believe that Eli Bowen is still very open, and I don't think he's in any rush to make a decision. I don't. Yeah. I also believe, just talking to him directly and talking to other people around him, that does he like Notre Dame? I'd say yeah. He likes Notre Dame. I would say it's at the top of his lists as far as like, you know, if there's a top 4, top 5 tentatively, right? Like Notre Dame's up there for sure. But I will say this one's not going to end for a long time. I wouldn't say Notre Dame's the leader right now. I would not say that in any regard. I don't think Eli, has a leader in the recruiting side of things. I think he is feeling this out. I think he's taking it slow, and I don't think he's becoming too attached to a program. I think he's doing his due diligence. He's a very studious kid. He's a very thorough kid in that regard. So from my pulse on Eli Bowen's side of things, I think that he likes Notre Dame, but we're not going to get anything close to a decision anytime in the future. So I don't think there's a leader. I don't think there's anything close to a leader right now for Eli Bowen.
I totally agree with you, Ryan. And then you have to think about the perfect storm that ultimately led to Peyton making his decision to commit to Notre Dame when he did. I expect Eli to take a little bit more time than Peyton did with his commitment. I think Marcus Freeman becoming the head coach while Notre Dame was already at the top of his list, along with the guys that he had a relationship with, kind of added to that quick commitment. I tried to time it because I knew it was coming and I just couldn't time it. But no.
Hey man, this is real life, buddy. This is real life.
And no,
I've literally had Juliet walk into the room while I'm podcasting. So like, you're good, man. You are good.
But no, I just think, two totally different instances. The support that Eli has and what he can learn from watching Peyton go through it is going to lead to Eli probably being more patient, taking his time. And for Eli, more than anything, it's probably going to be what he sees on the field when it comes to Notre Dame. Like if he sees another Benjamin Morrison, if Christian Gray comes in and follows in Benjamin Morrison's footsteps and has a great year as a youngster and develops, then that's something that Eli can look at as a young cornerback and say, you know what? There's a track record there. And if I go there, they can develop me and get me to where I want to be. That's probably the most important thing for him and his connection to Notre Dame, because he knows everything. What else does he need to know about Notre Dame? He's been on the visits. His parents love the school. His brother loves the school. He knows the coaches. He's watching the system. Now it's really about what's put out there on the field that's going to make the difference for Notre Dame in the recruitment of Eli Bowen.
And someone just said something very interesting, Sean, in the chat that I forgot to star here. But, it was Mike Sullivan that said, why wouldn't he wait to see how his brother is treated at Notre Dame? And that's interesting, Mike. It actually is because, look, Eli will have a very inside look into the program, right? Like you're selling us a vision, you're selling us where we're going, but the ability to see kind of what Peyton goes through a little bit maybe at Notre Dame, I think that might be interesting conversation, Mike. So I think that's a really good point, man. I never really thought about that, if I'm being completely honest, because they're only a year apart. They are close brothers. They have a good relationship. There's no doubt about that. But I do think that there's an interesting inside look into what the program can offer if Peyton does end up with Notre Dame, right? And that Eli can kind of take some things from that and get really an inside look. So interesting point by Mike there.
Is that from like a coaching standpoint?
Like
the transition as a freshman?
A coaching standpoint, a player treatment standpoint, like both on the field and off the field, right? Like how much are they coaching the guys that are, scout team players early, right? The fresh. How do they treat me off the field? Do they, they sold me as people to get me to come here. Do they still treat me to this high of a degree and to this standard, even when I'm a part of the program, when I've already signed my name on the dotted line? Like there's a lot to that, I think. I think that's an interesting conversation. So yeah, that was a really good point, Mike. I really like that one a ton. So Sean, there wasn't a big crop of 2023 kids outside of the commits, right? We've talked about the commits that were on campus. We'll give you guys a couple little tidbits from a lot of the commits as well in the Notre Dame class. But the big one that was on campus, Sean, and the big one for 2023 that we wanted to kind of hear from is I talked about this on Friday on Saturday morning. I did a little recruiting video. Caleb Smith, who's a wide receiver out of the state of Texas in the 2023 class, was on campus. So the big thing with him was he was committed to Texas Tech, was going to come and make the visit to Notre Dame as a unofficial visit this weekend for Clemson game. Right before he made the trip, he decommitted from Texas Tech, which would make this trip a official visits, right? So Caleb is a player that has a good relationship with Jaden Greathouse, when we're talking about. Jaden apparently has been doing some nice stuff behind the scenes, trying to sell Notre Dame to Caleb Smith. So Caleb got to campus this weekend. I am told by everything I am hearing that the trip went very well. The fact that he decommitted before the trip tells me, there's obviously some smoke to that fire, right? Like things are kind of moving in a pretty good direction. So I leave feeling very strongly that Caleb Smith I would say Notre Dame is definitely the leader for Caleb Smith. And I think that Notre Dame is definitely a take for Notre Dame. There's no doubt about it. Like this isn't jostling for the last wide receiver spot. Notre Dame wants Caleb Smith in this class. So had a great weekend from everything we've heard. Notre Dame is selling him, obviously on the fit. This is happening very quickly, Sean, but it looks like it could potentially be the 5th wide receiver in this class if now they're able to close over the next, I don't know if it's going to happen next few days, next couple weeks. Like timeline is still a little bit up in the air, but I think Notre Dame's in a great spot with Caleb Smith. And
like I said, no better script could have been written for how this weekend played out. A kid comes in off decommitting, to relationship with the Texas guys that are pretty much 2/3 of what we have in the wide receiver room right now. So that connection is there, similar to the connection with the St. Louis guys on the roster. And then you just lay out this weekend and the impact it had on a kid like Caleb Smith to kind of line up with everything I'm sure Braylon James has told him, that Jaden Greathouse has told him. It's like, you know what, you guys were not steering me wrong. I mean, the only thing that could have been different is seeing Drew maybe throw for like 250.
Sure.
But why we didn't need it. So
yes. And Sean, the fact that they didn't need it tells me more about the talent level than anything, right? Yeah. I mean, you had almost no passing attack during this football game, and you still dominate the number 4 team in the country by 3 scores. Like that happens, man. And I would just contest that. Like, and we'll talk about 2023 quarterback recruiting in the mailbag, because there's a couple questions about it. But can you imagine if Notre Dame gets the quarterback position right over the next couple of years, right? Yeah. How good this team could be, man. Like that's legitimate right there. Like from a development perspective, from a recruiting perspective, if they get hit on a couple of these cycles, right? A couple of these next seasons, Notre Dame, or just hit this offseason, whether it's transfer portal or whatever, getting Tyler Buckner healthy, whatever the case may be, Notre Dame has a chance to be special, man. So don't undersell that. Like they did a lot without a passing attack on Saturday, which is pretty wild.
And it's amazing. And I would be interested, Ryan, in hearing what is being said to these guys, right? Because they're not able to see it. Like Eli Bowen can see Benjamin Morrison. He can see it. He can see how he's been taught. He can see how he's been developed. Benjamin Morrison talked about what he's been taught led to the 2 interceptions, right? He said, I was taught here, when I'm in trail, always undercut because you have help over the top. He did it. He got the first pick. He said, I struggled all year with back shoulder throws and get my head around. I've been working on it. I was coached on it. That led to the 2nd interception in the pick 6. He can see it. So when you get a kid like a Jaden Greathouse, who's a great wide receiver, in a season like this, there's really nothing for him to see to point to say, that's how they're going to use me. So I'm very interested in what's being said by a Tommy Rees, by a Marcus Freeman, by a Chancey Stuckey, moving forward, because we heard Marcus Freeman say last week, we're the team we need to be now, but we're not the team that we're going to be. So they have to be saying something to these recruits to say, look, we're doing what we have to do right now to win football games. But trust and believe. Next year, the year after that, you're going to get the ball. Don't worry about that. We have a plan in place. So that's one of the interesting things. This staff is doing an amazing job without having it to show on the field of being able to give the vision to these recruits and get them to buy in before they even make it to campus.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's again, what Notre Dame showed on the field, I think, was a huge opportunity, and they nailed it this weekend, man. They really did. So, Sean, before we get into a lot of the 2024 kids, because there's a lot of guys to go over here, I want to talk about a talking point of 2023 that has a lot of importance moving forward. All right. So we have been talking endlessly about What is the final number in 2023? I've maintained 26 to 27. Like, I think that's somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
So I think a good talking point is going to be where we are right now, 23 commits in the 2023 class for Notre Dame, and what those last couple spots could consist of, right? And this has a lot of conversation piece to Caleb Smith that we just talked about that visited this week. There's also Khalil Barnes that I'm going to do a little bit of backstory as far as what his visit looked like this week and figure out what the final class is going to look like. So 2023, 23 commits in the class, Sean. They want a quarterback in this class. We'll talk about this in the mailbag, right? We'll talk about a couple of guys they're talking to. We'll talk about the importance of what they may have seen on Saturday that could help the case. And we'll talk about the timing of everything. Second player offensively that they want is another offensive lineman in 2023 class. We know who this player is that they want to, Sean. We've talked about it, right? They want Christopher Tarrick, Illinois offensive lineman. That's what they want. That's their fifth guy. And I'll say this, Sean. We haven't talked about this. I talked to Brian about this on the phone yesterday or the day before. Yeah. I just got my eyes finally on Charles Jagusah's senior tape. So this was my thoughts on Charles Jagusah originally, Sean. Ready? Could he play right tackle? Yeah, he could play right tackle, I think. Yeah, sure. Could he be a dominant guard? Yes. Neither one of those things have changed, but he's playing left tackle. He played left tackle this season for Alleman. And I will say this, Sean, he looked like a completely different player. Yes. Not from a talent perspective, because he's incredibly talented. He was always incredibly talented. He looked like a left tackle on film this year, man. Yeah. So now I'm looking here, and not only do I see he could play right tackle, I think that's the left tackle in this class, man. I think it's Jagusah. Yeah. I want to talk about, like, you had big potential as a junior, right? Like, that's what I saw as potential. Long arms, athletic, strong. He's got everything you need. But this season, he looked a lot more controlled. He looked a lot more consistent. Charles Jagusah is a left tackle in this class, I think. I think that's the guy moving forward, man. So just wanted to make a quick note there to say, because Sean, the conversation piece is like, well, Christopher Tarrick's not a left tackle at the next level. And I'm like, you're correct. But when I watch Jagusah now, my opinion on how he fits positionally has completely changed, man. Completely changed. Now you can say Charles Jagusah left tackle. Potentially, this is just for a class perspective. It's obviously not going to work out quite like this, right? But left tackle, Charles Jagusah. Right tackle, you have Sullivan Absher. And then your guards are Sam Pendleton and maybe Christopher Tarrick if you're able to close on him. Yeah. And then your center, Joe Otting. Like, that makes sense. It makes such a fits perspective. And if you guys have not seen Charles Jagusah's film, for the people that like to talk a lot about, kind of the film aspect of everything, and that's what I love, go take a look at Charles Jagusah's senior film. It's really, really good stuff. So that's where we are, quarterback, offensive line. This is where the conversation gets fun, Sean, because that takes us to 25. Ready? So from sources around the program, people we're talking to, I believe that the number right now is 27 that they're going to get to, right? Like, I think that's the number. So the three players that are on the board, and they all work together here. And we had a question about this, and this is going to kind of answer that conversation piece. We talked about Caleb Smith, wide receiver out of the state of Texas. We talked, I'm going to talk about in a second, Khalil Barnes, defensive back, wide receiver out of the state of Georgia. And we have talked a whole lot about Brandon Hillman, the safety, rover, linebacker, running back out of the state of Virginia. We've talked about all three of those players in spurts. So this is what it's looking like right now, Sean. I believe that Notre Dame wants Caleb Smith in the class, and then they're going to take one of the two athletes between Khalil Barnes and Brandon Hillman. Whoever wants to be a part of the class first is how I'm taking it. Right now, that's what it's looking like. I will say, though, there is some internal conversation about trying to get all three if they can make the number work. So 27 is the number I'm confident in today, but don't be surprised if at the end of it, if all three players like Notre Dame and want to go to Notre Dame, that Notre Dame doesn't make the number work and gets to 28. That's where we were right now. So, yeah, a lot of talent, man. Well, let's talk this, Sean. I'm going to talk about this, and we'll kind of circle this conversation piece, right? Khalil Barnes was in town. I had a piece that went out on him yesterday because I got a chance to talk to him over the weekend. Khalil Barnes, Sean, this was I'm paraphrasing slightly, but he said, I was like, how did the trip go? Damn near perfect, man. That was it. That was it.
No, it was like a movie. I'm telling you, like a Disney movie this weekend. It really was.
Yeah. Sean, it was crazy, man. Because I was like, these kids are feeling the elation that I was also feeling during the game, and it's. Yeah. So Khalil Barnes, and I know you've probably seen a little bit of him, Sean. So he is a player that could play corner at the next level. He could play wide receiver at the next level. From what I've heard, from what I've been told, is that Notre Dame likes him, or sources close to Notre Dame, I should say, likes him on both sides of the ball to a degree, right? Like he could play corner, he could play wide receiver. I know for a fact, and this is straight from Khalil's mouth, he wants to play wide receiver. Right? Like that's what he wants to start with. And I think the Notre Dame staff would be open to it, to seeing how it looks. Mm-hmm. And then, you make a decision based upon what the best fit is, all that type of stuff. Right. Yeah. But so circling back to that conversation piece, Sean, 3 very talented athletes on the table: Caleb Smith, Khalil Barnes, Brandon Hillman. I think we could expect 2 out of 3 to ultimately be in this class, but we may be able to push that number to 3. And Notre Dame could end with 28 players in one class, man. That's a big number, man. That is a big number, and a bigger number than I thought for a long time here.
And it also tells you something about the 24 class, right? Like when they get those type of numbers in 23, I think they're laser focused on that list for 24 for them is precise. Like they have 6, they know who they want. And it's like, okay, cool. We're set at this number, and they can be more aggressive because the number won't be as high in 24, right? And how does that impact the way the kids look at it, right? Because the kids know, okay, they have limited numbers this year. Man, do I want to play this out? Or do I want to go ahead and lock in? So it's going to be very interesting. 27 with a possibility of 28. That's a huge class.
That is.
You know what that tells me? It's going to be a lot of decisions being made from the junior class. That's what it tells me. Like,
yeah.
Well, and maybe it is in anticipation of what could happen with possible defections from the program, because that's just the reality of it. Guys want playing time.
Yep.
They want an opportunity to play. So, that's to be expected. But yeah, for the number to be that high, because like we said, we thought the max would be 26 for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 20, right around 25, 26. But they came into the season with so many locked up.
Yeah.
And just remember, they lost 2.
Yep.
They lost Dante and they lose Keon.
Yep. And Elijah Page. Page.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and Sean, this is a great conversation piece that you brought to the table before when we were doing our prep for the show. And I think it's a great conversation, right? Because look, so 27, 28, it's a big number. To your point, there's going to be defections from the roster, whether that is, expected defections as in graduation, leaving early for the NFL. There's always going to be some transfers to a varying degree. Right. It's always going to happen with just the transfer portal era that we live in right now, right? So there's going to be some guys leaving the roster. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what Notre Dame's doing right now, is let's get a bigger number because we can figure it out a little easier than maybe you once could as far as like figuring out the numbers. Yeah. But a great point you brought up, Sean, I want you to start the conversation here because I think it's paramount, as you just mentioned, right? Notre Dame lost the commitment from Keon Keeley. They did. Mm-hmm. They had a silent from Dante Moore in the class, and that obviously did not go well as far as, figuring that out. And the Dante Moore saga continues. I'm sure you've seen that whole conversation. But that happens. Elijah Page leaves the class. This has not been a perfect process for Notre Dame. But the thing I commend Notre Dame for is that they've recovered, man. They have not just kind of fallen flat on their face. They figured it out a little bit. And I know that's one thing that you want to talk about is like Notre Dame's recovered pretty well on the recruiting side of things.
Look, we started out with Justin Rett, right? Out of Las Vegas. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Justin Rett is committed to Georgia right now.
That's correct.
If I'm not mistaken. So he's one of the top cornerbacks, and everybody was like, oh, man. And it was a joint decision. It was a kid that wanted to take official visits, and Notre Dame was pretty much like, hey, we don't do that. Like, if you're open, we're open. And then their openness, they went and got Christian Gray and Micah Bell. That's like, if you're going to lose Justin Rett, that's how you recover. You know, you go get two guys at the position like, Christian Gray and Micah Bell.
Sean, can I say something real quick about that?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. I'll say this. I was a fan of Justin Rett. I mean, he's a height, weight, speed guy. Like, he's got a lot of talent to him. Yeah. I would argue, though, that Christian Gray, like, Justin Rett might have a little more upside than Christian Gray, but Christian Gray is a better football player right now than Justin Rett, in my opinion, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And I think Micah Bell has got much higher upside than both of those guys, right? So not only did you recover, you may have gotten a better cornerback duo than you originally probably were going to get. So just wanted to put that in there before you finish.
No, and then we can go to, the loss of a long time, we can say it now, a kid that pretty much we thought would be a lock for the class, and Ronan Hannafin. We thought he was a lock. And then ultimately he chooses Clemson, and then we get Ben Minich, a guy that initially, when they rebounded and went straight to him, we were like, okay. But then we started to watch his senior film, Ryan, and we were like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, he's not a throw-in like we thought originally, right? Like I was like, it seems like kind of like a depth piece, long-term backup. I'm like, oh no, Ben Minich can play a little bit, man. He can play a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
And then, of course, look, I don't think this was something that they thought would turn into this, but you go and get quantity. Mm-hmm. You don't get Keon, but you go get Armel Muka, and you go get Boubacar Traore. You get quantity guys with big time upside. You know what I'm saying? They get in there. Matt Bayless gets them with that frame and length. Dude, you talking about 82 inches? Like, and length is crazy. But these guys are players, man. Yeah. We would love. And Keon Keeley, when he put up his IG post weeks ago, still had Notre Dame in his top 4. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he's still watching. Is it still a possibility? Hey, only he knows at this point.
It's up to Keon if he wants it to be a thing.
It's up to him. He knows where Notre Dame is.
Notre Dame's not going to chase him, right? Like, if Keon wanted to come back and hit the coaching staff back up, like we talked about this before, there would be a spot for Keon Keeley. Absolutely. But Notre Dame's not going to chase Keon, right? Like, they did everything they should have in that situation. So to your point,
yeah. So they recover, along the defensive line, and they get depth, and they get 2 for 1, if you want to say it like that. But even more than that, the recovery was not so much swapping in somebody. It was after these defections that kept the rest of the class intact. And that is something that I think most people are overlooking. The ability of this staff, amidst everything that was happening, you lose Justin Rett. You lose Dante. On the heels of Dante, you lose Keon Keeley. And a lot of people thought, just like similar Notre Dame classes before, or like Notre Dame classes before in the past, this class was going to start crumbling a little bit. Yeah. And this staff wouldn't let it happen. And these recruits wouldn't let it happen. That's the most important thing. The commits wouldn't let it happen. Mm-hmm. And that cannot go. We can't let that go without speaking on it and talking about it. Notre Dame has done a great job recovering from some of the hits that they've taken. And you have to do that to have a great recruiting class because, everybody's going to face these type of challenges unless you're Alabama, Georgia. Everybody else has to get used to someone else choosing another school or be committed. It's an issue, and it's today's game in recruiting.
Yep. And I just want to answer this real quick. Sean LM20 said, so you guys think Keon might come back? That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I don't think he will, but I'm saying I'm just saying that Notre Dame would have a spot open if he ever did come back, right? Like we talked about that when he first decommitted. Notre Dame kind of said like, hey, we'll have a spot for you, but we're not chasing you anymore, right? Like we're not recruiting you. So no, I don't think he ends up with Notre Dame. But what I'm saying is that like you never know after a team has a visit like that, has a game like that, and maybe the wheels start turning again. I'm not saying that Keon's coming back. I do not expect that. I do not.
I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
There has been contact with the recruits.
Just going to leave it like that, right? A little cliffhanger. I like it, man. I like it.
Oh, look, I'm not sitting here saying what's going to happen. What I do know is that the decision was really, like, people laugh and joke and take shots at recruits. The decision he made was really, really hard for him. And I don't think people can really process that properly.
Yeah.
Whatever you might think about the situation or what was going on, you might have it right. But for that young man, it was a really, really difficult and emotional decision.
Yep.
That he made. One that he really struggled with. Mm-hmm. And the fact is, just like everybody else, that ship had, like, that was gone. Like most people thought, okay, he decommitted, that ship had sailed, right? And then all of a sudden, he still lists Notre Dame in his top 4. He could have put out a top 3. He still puts Notre Dame in his top 4, right?
Yep.
He hadn't talked before he decommitted. He had shut off communication with the recruits. They hadn't heard from him for about 2 weeks.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, there's communication. So whatever the communication is, I don't care if it's emojis. He communicated for whatever reason. It could just be, low, those are my brothers, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Communication was there. So, yeah, it might be nothing. But a big win like that and a big win against USC, and he's watching. He's watching.
Mm-hmm.
You never know. You never know. I guarantee you Marcus Freeman, if a call comes in, I guarantee you he's taking the call.
Oh, for sure. For sure. For sure. No doubt about that.
The competitor that Marcus Freeman is, I'll go a step further. Marcus Freeman didn't give up on that. I don't think for 1 second Marcus Freeman just flat out gave up on that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
It's going to be interesting to watch, Sean. I mean, ultimately, I don't think it happens, but, as long as it's still out there, you never know. And and I know people love their I know people love their crystal balls and all that good stuff, right? But if you really think that you can predict the recruiting landscape, you're wrong. You're wrong. Like I've already made that mistake covering recruiting where I was like, oh, that's definitely not going to happen. And then something happens. And you're just like,
parents. We're talking about parents.
Talking about 17-year-olds. Yeah, exactly.
NIL, emotions. It's just too many. Yeah. Too many things.
Yep. Too many outliers and too many question marks and too many things changing. And we're not going to get into the habit of making those assumptions and making those absolutes. I mean, Sean, especially because I'm a draft guy, right? At the core, it's like there's no certainties in the draft world. There's no certainties in the recruiting world either, man. Like we're not doing that. So that's a great talking point, though, for the 2023 class. That's what we're kind of looking at right now, 27, possibly 28, depending on how things kind of shake out. That's the number for the class. Sean, let's talk about a lot of these 2024 kids that were on campus, man, because we have some great intel, not only in some pieces, some articles that we've already put out at irishbreakdown.com. Make sure you go check it out, but also on the message board.irishbreakdown.com, the intel piece that I was talking about earlier. Let's talk about some of these guys. Interesting one, Sean, that visited this weekend. Carson Hobbs, defensive back out of Archbishop Moeller in the state of Ohio. He is committed, 2024 class, to the University of South Carolina currently, Sean. I've talked to him a couple times over just the past week.
Yeah.
Talked to him after the visit. Look, the visit went about as well as it could have for Carson Hobbs. He is high on Notre Dame, still committed to the Gamecocks. But all I'm going to say about that is that I wouldn't be shocked if that changes in the future. Okay. And if that does change in the future, I believe Notre Dame would be in a very good spot for Caleb Hobbs if he comes back open. I'm sorry, Carson Hobbs, excuse me, for the recruiting process, right? He's told me in the past that although he's been committed to South Carolina and he loves South Carolina, that he's still open to the process, right? Trying to find the best fit for him. So, we could talk about the validity of that statement, whatever. All I know is that Carson Hobbs is high on Notre Dame. And if things do change in his commitment to South Carolina, which I would not be shocked about, I do think Notre Dame would be in very good position for Carson. So he is 6 foot, 6'1", long corner, athletic, out of the state of Ohio. So keep an eye on Carson Hobbs. He's one. Sean, I know you've probably heard about this background a little bit. So I was told by multiple sources that probably the biggest needle moving visit this weekend was Aeneas Williams, running back out of the state of Missouri, out of Hannibal High School.
Yeah.
5'10", 195, 200-pound running back. Going to get a lot of comparisons to Kyron Williams, I think, on the next level if he ends up at Notre Dame. So, Sean, backstory on him. He is Missouri's all-time leading rusher, and he is only a high school junior.
Already.
Already. And he has very high opinions of Notre Dame. He did coming into the visit. And he also has a lot of premier schools coming after him now, Sean. Like, he goes to Hannibal's a smaller level in the state of Missouri, so he doesn't play against the best competition, which is why his stats are just so outrageous. And he's also a really good defensive back for his team as well, and a good receiver as well when they choose to use him in that capacity. Yeah. So teams really wanted to see him, programs really wanted to see him on the camp circuit this past offseason, right? So they saw him in camp, in person, on campus, all that good stuff. And they saw him, and his offer list has been blowing up. Now he's pretty much I think he's a consensus 4-star across every major recruiting platform. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame's high on him. And I will just leave it like this, man. I've talked to players that were there. I've talked to people that were there. I've talked to some people behind the scenes, some sources there. I think that Aeneas Williams, Notre Dame leaves this visit as Aeneas Williams' clear leader in this recruitment. And, when does this recruitment end? Yeah. Great conversation to have. I'm not 100% sure on that. I wouldn't be shocked if it is not incredibly long process moving forward, but Notre Dame clear leader for Aeneas Williams right now in the 2024 cycle after this visit.
I think he is the unofficial new member of the Rat Pack. That's what I call it. I got a good laugh from Cam Williams when I told him that. I was like, oh, he's the new unofficial member of the Rat Pack. But no, Cam Williams told me, like, I'm locked in. He said, my two guys are Ryan Wingo and Aeneas Williams. Just happens to be two Missouri/St. Louis area guys. So the proximity, the friendship they built, and he put out a tweet saying, yeah, I told him. He knows the message. And whatever message was given, came across pretty well based upon their conversation with the people connected to him. So, look, I don't care what level this young man plays on. Mm-hmm. This man is the all-time leading rusher in a state stocked with talent every year. Yeah. And he still has a full season left. Look, Alabama wants him. If Alabama wants you as a running back, it's a pretty good sign you're a pretty good running back. Yes. Georgia wants him. If Georgia wants you as a running back, it's a pretty good sign that you're a pretty good running back. So,
especially if they're going to a lower level Missouri school, right? Like I think that speaks volumes to the talent level that he has. Like, it's absurd, man. So and a great note, because I know you're close with Cam Williams. I got to talk to Cam a little bit this after this visit as well, man. And I saw the picture too of him and Aeneas. Like, I keep saying this, Sean, but I just want to reiterate it again. Cam Williams, I feel like, is to the 2024 class what Drake Bowen is to the 2023 class. That's what I'm kind of seeing right now, man. Like he's putting in that much work.
Yeah, I get that sense as well. But it's so funny when you watch the pictures, they're all drawn to Drake. It's so crazy. Like you see all of these 24 kids, and Drake is still right there in the middle of everything. And I think that's the synergy that's been built by this 23 class in totality, honestly. Like the synergy has been picked up by the 24 kids. And I think they want to continue that. And when you talk to these recruits, man, I get the sense, I almost feel like I should remind them, like, you're still in high school, right?
Right.
You're not officially part of the team yet.
Cam is although Cam's a little goofy, right? Like he likes to joke around and stuff, Sean. But that kid's a very mature young man for his age. For being a junior in high school, like he's got it together, man, which is pretty. I mean, it makes sense why he's such a good fit with Notre Dame, right? Like why he just exudes Notre Dame, like why it just makes so much sense. Like he's a good player.
Are you shocked by how fast some of these connections have happened in the 24 class? Like he happened really fast. And
think about it, Sean. Like the CJ Carr, Cam Williams, Jack Larson friendship, like it's just off of meeting one time at Irish Invasion, and it's just boomed from there, man. Like it really has.
And now it could possibly lead to Ryan Wingo, Aeneas Williams, and we'll get to this guy who actually was the first commit in the class.
Mm-hmm.
Probably deserves more credit, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But yeah, that class is amazing.
Let's go there now. Let's just do it. Ready? Because I know people have been hyper-focusing on this recruitment as well. Yeah. Brandon Davis-Swain, out of the state of Michigan, first commit in the 2024 class. He committed at the spring game this past year. And so, Sean, to the backstory, right? He's been on campus at Michigan a couple of times. We've talked about it a ton. It's something that he has been doing forever, like as long as he can remember, right? Like it's a childhood thing for him.
Yeah.
So people have been freaking out about it. I know you talked to him. I know he had a very good visit. What do you want to say about Brandon Davis-Swain and his recent visit to Notre Dame this weekend?
Well, one of the things that really attracted him to Notre Dame, besides his relationship with Coach Washington, which is much stronger, and we have a story coming up, talking to him before the visit and talking to him after the visit. I believe that story is going to be coming out tomorrow on Brandon Davis-Swain, and his dad has some really, really huge things to talk about when it comes to the rumors that are put out there by E.J. Holland and other schools about visits and him being at games. I can tell you this, and they love football as a family. Brandon Davis, his father, is literally livid about the way things have gone down from a reporting standpoint surrounding his son. And he made that very clear. And we put that in the article and talked about it just a little bit. But just to clarify, the reason he loves the family and brotherhood at Notre Dame is because he comes from a high school and community that has that. It gave us Khalid Kareem. It has Matthew Judon, linebacker for the Patriots in the NFL. Those are two guys that he works out with when they come home during the offseason. Donovan Edwards at Michigan is of that same brotherhood. That's his brother. And if he loves going to see his brother play, like it wouldn't matter if he was committed or not committed, he would be going to Michigan games to see someone as part of the brotherhood. One of the defensive backs, I forget his name, 23 defensive back that's on his West Bloomfield high school team is a commit to Michigan, one of his best friends. He's gone to kick it with his friends at a Michigan game. And he was very adamant. His father was very adamant. My son is going to enjoy every ounce of his recruitment. He deserves it, and he's worked hard to get to this point. So don't get caught up in the hype of all the false reports. He went to Notre Dame because that's where he wanted to be. Let's remember this, and this is what I wanted to point out. he is very good friends, going back years, with CJ Carr.
Yeah.
Just a tidbit here that you'll only get right here on Irish Breakdown, the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. April 23rd was supposed to be a combined commitment.
Love
But
that.
it was CJ's dad that wanted CJ to take a little bit more time. And it wasn't until the invasion that CJ finally said, look, told his parents, I'm ready. I've taken all the time I need. That was supposed to be an April 23rd CJ Carr, Brandon Davis-Swain commitment.
Wow.
That's what I gathered from what was told to me over the weekend. CJ didn't pull the trigger, and Brandon didn't waver at all.
Yep.
He said, I'm doing it. His father didn't even know. After the game, he walked to the office with Coach Washington and said, I want to commit. Of course, he alerted his father slightly before that, and his father told him, if you're ready, let's do it. So, I think he's taken a lot of, I understand fans hearing about visits and all of that. Look, you feel the way you want to feel about it, right? But I also understand the other side of any parent, whether it be Peyton Bowen accompanying Eli on his visits, or whether or not it's a joint visit between those two. If they go to an Oregon or they go to an Oklahoma, dude, that's their right. This is recruiting.
Yep.
They have the right to enjoy every aspect of their recruitment.
Right.
Until it's time to send in that official paper.
No doubt about it. Agree completely.
And however you feel about that, if you're on the other side and you feel like, well, if you committed, you shouldn't be going anywhere. Well, unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. That's not the world we live in. And there are some people that feel like their children and their young men have worked hard enough to take part in the benefits of the hard work that they've put forth.
Yep.
I don't have any problem with that. And Brandon Davis-Swain, I salute you as the first commit. And I salute you saying, yo, this is where I want to be, and sticking by that.
Yes.
Saying that everything after this weekend is even stronger than the day you committed, which was on April 23rd, 2022.
Yep. And Sean, that little tidbit about CJ and Brandon doing a joint commitment, man, why would you come to any other sites, any other YouTube channel for your recruiting updates, man? Because that's the stuff right there. They always say it in the chat, Sean. You spin it different, man. Spinning it different. Love it, brother. Love it. So that's a little insight into Brandon Davis-Swain this past weekend. Another guy, Sean, that I actually had the opportunity to talk to yesterday that I've developed a pretty good relationship so far with. Garrett Stover, who is the cousin of Cade Stover, who's a starting tight end at the University of Ohio State. Yeah. He is from Sunbury, Ohio, goes to Big Walnut. And so this is the deal with Garrett Stover. First and foremost, he got his family up there, got both his younger brothers, got his mom, his dad, the whole family went up for the visit. He got offered. He was another one of those kids that got offered at the Irish Invasion this past year. So Garrett Stover, first and foremost, had a tremendous visit. He spoke highly of the energy of the crowd, ability to talk to James Laurinaitis, to Al Golden, to Marcus Freeman, obviously being recruited by Notre Dame as a rover linebacker. They could see him inside potentially, but they also see him early on as a rover in Notre Dame's system. So great visit, spoke to Garrett. And I put a recruiting update or a visit recap, whatever you want to call it, on the site yesterday that came out. And so this is the deal with Garrett Stover for you all. Right now, I believe that we are in decision-making process for Garrett's. He told me, out there in the open, that it is going to be, he doesn't see this one straying past a month or two. So next few weeks, I think this one is going to be decided on where he was going to potentially be making his home at the next level. He told me that his big things that he wanted to see, because there's been 2 schools that have separated themselves from the pack for Garrett Stover. One is Notre Dame. The other is Ohio State. No surprise there, right?
Yeah.
He's pretty close to Columbus, and he obviously has a cousin that goes to Ohio State, all that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So Notre Dame and Ohio State have separated themselves from Garrett Stover. He wanted to be able to see both spots game day and to feel it, right? Because he's a big believer in relationships and the feel. Like he's big in that area. Yeah. So he finally got to Notre Dame for a game. Hadn't been back at Notre Dame since the Irish invasion when he camped there in June. So heading into this opportunity, Sean, I wouldn't say that either one school has separated themselves from the other. But what I will say is that Notre Dame and Ohio State are neck to neck now here going down the stretch. A lot of people will say it's Ohio State's, and that's an absolute. I will say that I think Notre Dame is in this one and has an opportunity here, right? They need to close out over the next few weeks, but Notre Dame kicked this visit out of the park, in my opinion, and is trending in a very good direction with Cade Stover. So we're talking Ohio State, Notre Dame battle for Garrett Stover, who is a really talented linebacker out of the state of Ohio in 2024.
It just goes to show you that the fearlessness that the staff is approaching recruiting with. Going into Texas, getting Braylon James, getting Jaden Greathouse, possibly getting Caleb Smith. Going into St. Louis, into Big 12 country, SEC country. Establishing that pipeline and continue to work from class of 22, 23, 24, going back even further. Going into now Ohio, which most people will say, you know what, if you're a big-time kid from Ohio, you might as well just go after the guys right under them because you're not getting a big-time kid out of Ohio. They're going to Ohio State. Well, Brendan Vernon, in minutes would tell you, nah. We'll go to Notre Dame. And it's the same thing with Stover. Notre Dame is fearless. They will go and fight Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, whomever they have to fight when they believe this is a guy we need. And that's what you're seeing from Stover as well. And the fact that feeling came across and they're sitting in the position they're sitting in. And once again, it's hard for me to decompress right off of Saturday. Because the news that we continue to report makes you feel even stronger about what we were able to witness and hear about this weekend. So, that's very encouraging. Very encouraging. And then Michigan. I was like, what state isn't Notre Dame attacking right now? Like, they don't care. I think the only state that they're kind of about will probably be Florida.
Yeah.
Like they went and got Keon, but other than that.
Yeah, they've been sporadic in the state of Florida. They have. Sean, let me tell you a stat, and I want to hear your instant feedback on it. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
So Notre Dame, if they get Caleb Smith, is going to have 3 wide receivers from the state of Texas in this recruiting cycle. That's not even counting Micah Bell. That's not counting Peyton Bowen. That's not counting whatever else happens in Texas. This recruiting process. So that is 3 wide receivers in 1 class out of the state of Texas. Previous 5 classes for Notre Dame, they had 3 players out of the state of Texas. You have as many wide receivers in the 2023 class out of the state of Texas as you had Texas players the previous 5 cycles.
That's crazy. And it happened quick. It happened quick, right?
Yep.
Right. They planted the flag in Texas literally in 1 cycle. Like, we're changing this. We're about to change the entire narrative and go get some of the best talent from this state. And almost flip Novosad. From Baylor. So it's amazing what this staff has done from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, and we also mentioned on the boards at irishbreakdown.com a couple quarterbacks that they should keep close eyes on, right? Close eyes on. And there was a Texas quarterback that is in that piece. You should go to boards.irishbreakdown.com because there's a lot of good stuff on that site, man. A lot of good stuff on that board. Sean, last guy that I really want to dive into in depthly, and then we'll kind of get into our surprise interview of the day. Don't forget about that, folks. I have a really fun interview coming for you guys in a few minutes here. So Notre Dame hosted not just 2023, not just 2024, not just 2025, but also 2026, Sean. So there were 4 different classes on campus this weekend. One young man from 2025 I just want to hit on real quick. Noah McHale, who is a linebacker safety out of the state of California. He visited. He's one of the top 2025 recruits early on. He was also not only – so I got some tidbits on his visit, Sean. I'll have an update coming on the site pretty soon. But he was offered by Notre Dame during this visit as well, 2025 kid, which, again, that doesn't happen too often, right? Like the board for 2025 is pretty small at this point. Right. So not only did he get his offer, in this piece, and I will just put it out there right now, he called Notre Dame his dream school. He did. He said he grew up loving Notre Dame.
Wow.
He had a great experience at Notre Dame. He's been on campus before, although he lives in the state of California. This is his first time as a recruit. So Noah McHale, just wanted to put it out there real quick, had a great opportunity to check out Notre Dame this past weekend. And it was some good stuff for him, man. Some good stuff. So keep an eye out for that piece at irishbreakdown.com. I'll have that for you all pretty soon here. So, Sean, I think the last thing I want to say before we get to this interview is I know that you also contributed a bunch of intel as far as some 2023 kids that were on campus, commits, some 2024. You already talked about Brandon Davis-Swain. We talked a little bit about Christian Gray, not a ton, though. Do you want to just throw out a couple of the tidbits that you came across while just kind of deep diving from some commits?
Yo, Christian Gray, this man, look, he always makes me laugh, right? So I was talking to him about the game, and I was asking him, about Benjamin Morrison and, like, just watching him and how he's developed. And him and Adon Schuler took a picture with Jaden Mickey, Coach Mickens, and Benjamin Morrison after the game. And he was just talking about being able to talk to Jaden Mickey and talk to Benjamin Morrison and already getting a sense of what to expect, when he shows up and what he needs to do. And so I asked him this question. I said, yo, the DB room is going to be crazy next year. #lockdown. His response, definitely, for sure. We're going to work our butts off next year to get that natty 100-100. Yo, like I said, these 23, I have to almost remind these 23 guys, like, dude, you're like, graduate and go to prom, man. Like, go to prom and graduate. They're locked in already.
Wasn't Christian Gray also the one that you sent over that he said something like, I stormed the field and I immediately regretted it? Was that
oh, man. I was like, yo, so what was your favorite part of the weekend? He was like, oh, storming the field. He was like, but I immediately regretted it, like immediately. And so he was like, he said, man, I just grabbed a hold to an offensive lineman and followed him to the locker room. He said, I got a big offensive lineman and just walked behind him, and it still took 5 to 7 minutes to get off the field. But he said once he got down there, but he did say this. He said it was pretty cool because what the Notre Dame people did was they anticipated the storming, and they emptied the recruit section along with their parents.
Man, your front door is busy today, my man.
I know. So they allowed the recruits and parents to come down as the clock was going down. So they were already down on the field. The parents kind of stayed out on the fringes and just kind of watched. But then the recruits just, they wanted to be a part of storming the field, and all of the recruits went down. It was like they were all part of it. So, yeah, but he said, look, I lost everybody. I looked up at all the guys I came on the field with. I was like, yo, where'd everybody go? So now he's following a Notre Dame football player to just get to the back where everyone was waiting in the locker room in that little wait area up the tunnel. So
love it.
Yeah, that Christian is funny, man.
He really is.
Yeah. I said, how long did it take you to get out? He said about 20 minutes. It took him 20 minutes to get out.
Sean, I like, man, I literally read that quote you sent me, and I literally LOL'd, man. I think I saw it this morning, and my wife looked at me and she's like, "Why are you smiling at your phone?" I'm just like, "It was funny. Like, what do you want me to say, man? It was funny."
You never think about that, right? You're just storming the field, going to be a part of everything, and then that mass of people, you can't it's going to take you a while to get out. You're a recruit. It's not like you can't stay down here. You have to get to the back to hang out with the other recruits and talk to the coaches and players. And it took him a while to finally find a Notre Dame player that was still out there. And then once he found them, it still took him 5 to 7 minutes to kind of like walk through with that. It's man, crazy experience. Absolutely amazing experience. And guys like him and Drake Bowen, you talk about the guys that this is their first time. These guys have been there for some of the disappointing losses this year.
Yes.
Right? So they had to go through that, still believe, still be encouraging on social media to the fan base, to the fans that are there, smile, take pictures, do all of that. For them, this was a huge night as well. Like, even though they're locked in and committed, for them to experience this, it was almost like a validation of their choice. Like, yes, this is the vision we committed to. Like, this is the team we know we are. So it was a big night for them as well.
Yep. And I know we talked about Cam Williams. You spoke to him. I know Charles Jagasaw, you spoke to him. He had a really good time as well. So
I talked to Charles Jagasaw, and he was excited. Every time he goes there, it's almost like he has homework from Harry Easton, right? Just something to watch. And I asked him, did he storm the field? He was like, yeah. He was the one to let me know that they kind of let everyone come down early.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
And got everybody prepared. But he just said, it was a really good time just hanging out with everybody before the game and after the game, and just being able to watch a dominant performance from the O-line. Of course, that's all he mentioned. He didn't say dominant performance by the team. He said just being able to watch a dominant performance from the O-line. That lets you know where his eyes were focused on the entire time. So, it doesn't get any better than these guys. And like I said, the experience that they were able to get this weekend. You have to love it.
Man, it was just great around the horn, man. Committed players, uncommitted players, 2023, 2024. We have a lot of mailbag questions about the recruiting weekend, so we're not done talking about it for today. But this is going to end the first section. This is the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour, recapping this weekend's big visitation. All right, Sean, second part of the podcast.
Yep.
I teased this for you guys, and it's great timing. I feel like Ben Tarnowski read my mind here, Sean. He asked, Is Drake Bowen still going to be a dual sport football and baseball player, or since Link left, has he changed that? If he decides not, will he enroll early or play his senior season? Let me say, Ben, I need to send you a paycheck, sir, or Brian needs to send you a pen check, because you just gave the great segue to this conversation that I had before this past weekend. I got to sit down with Drake Bowen, 2023 linebacker out of the state of Indiana, out of Andrean High School, who is still making a hard charge towards the state championship this year. So without further ado, my conversation with Mr. Drake Bowen, 2023 linebacker commits for the University of Notre Dame. Now joining the Irish Breakdown podcast, Mr. Drake Bowen, star 2023 linebacker out of Andrean High School in the state of Indiana, chose to stay home in the state, obviously, and play his football at the University of Notre Dame. Drake, I know it's a very busy time for people that aren't out there that don't know. We're recording here on a Thursday, which I just saw on Twitter earlier. You announced that this was a year anniversary for when you committed to the University of Notre Dame. You got a big playoff game tomorrow, second round playoff game, and you're going to be out for the Notre Dame Clemson game on Saturday as well. So it's busy times, man, but I really appreciate you for taking the time, brother. How's everything been going for you?
It's been pretty good. We've just been preparing for the game tomorrow. Make sure we're all ready on defense, offense. We're just getting ready to go.
Yeah. Well, Drake, let me ask you, man, because you're obviously nearing the end of your senior season, and you're having obviously a fantastic one. I know you ran for over 200 yards last week in a big victory in the first round of the playoffs, 15 tackles. You're over 100 tackles again this season, over double-digit tackles for loss. Just how have you been enjoying the season so far? Obviously, you individually have been putting together a great season. The team is having a lot of success. How is the senior season living up to your expectations?
Yeah, it started out a little rough. We started out 0-2, so that was not ideal. Started the senior season, but since then we picked it up a lot. We ended the regular season not how we wanted to, but I think kind of that was just the eye opener of what we needed to start to do during practices, games, kind of just what we needed to be more about. And I think we showed that last week against Laville about our defense kind of just getting nitty and gritty and just mean. So I think that was something that we picked it up a lot since the last regular season game. So I think that's something that's kind of lived up to my expectation of what our defense should be. And I'm excited that it's came along, and we still got a while to go. So I'm excited about the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, man. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking some time a Thursday night before another big game. It's like I said, very busy for you. But Drake, let me ask you, man, because I started here at Irish Breakdown in January, and when I got here, you were committed for a long time, obviously, already at that point. One of the originals in this class, I guess one of the OGs of the 2023 class. Just take me through this a little bit, man, because like I said, you're a year today committed, full year to the University of Notre Dame. Has to be a little bit surreal to think that it's been that long already, but just how have you enjoyed being committed to the class and seeing the great 2023 group that you guys are building together?
Yeah, it's been super exciting. I came when I committed. Coach Kelly was still here, and so I got to go through the ups and downs with that, with him leaving, and then Coach Freeman being hired. So that was super exciting, getting to see Coach Freeman, be head coach after being recruited by him, and then just getting to meet everyone. That was super exciting, and just getting to meet everyone and kind of see this class start to come together. Being one of the first ones to commit. So, it's been a long ride, but we still got some more we got to do, and then eventually when we get there, some championships to win. So, I know we're all excited to get there and get ready to win some games.
Oh, absolutely. And I know, like you said, Drake, I going to assume obviously with the importance that Marcus Freeman was to you in making the commitment originally, just how difficult, well, let me rephrase. So your defensive coordinator becomes the head coach. Obviously for a defensive player, that's got to be pretty reassuring knowing that like, hey, the guy that I've been building a great relationship is still going to be the head coach. But can you just speak to how important that it was Coach Freeman to kind of settle maybe some nerves after Coach Kelly left?
Yeah, it was pretty big that he was head coach, because I know for a lot of us, he was a big reason why we came to Notre Dame. And so that was something that where if he wasn't going to be head coach, we may have not stayed. And so that was something that we were all excited about, whether that was, it was mostly defensive players because he had recruited the defensive side, but even some offensive players, we were really attached to him. And so him being head coach was something that was just huge for everyone and allowed us, even more reassurance that this was our place and this was our home.
And I know, listening to a lot of interviews you've done in the past, Drake, I've heard that you actually grew up an Alabama fan. I know that you guys, obviously your family has a lot of Southern ties. Can you just take me through just kind of actualizing and hearing it firsthand? What was it about Notre Dame that, I guess, reversed the tides there? No pun intended, you being an Alabama fan, you being, having the Southern ties. Why ultimately did Notre Dame win out, in your opinion?
So it really started with Coach Freeman. I really just ever since the process went and started talking to him more, I couldn't say no to him any step of the way. I actually tried to rule out ND because I didn't want to be up here. I didn't want to stay close to home. I wanted to kind of get out. I didn't want to be in the cold anymore, which was a big thing. So, but every step of the way, all I could do was compare places to Notre Dame. And so kind of compare coaches to Coach Freeman and kind of compare fans to Notre Dame fans. So, the campus, it just spoke for itself, like the history, what everything means there was just something that you're not going to get at very many places. And so that was just something like I knew it just campus speaks for itself. So it's not really something you can compare to any other campus. But, going from football and then baseball and just kind of comparing everything, I just couldn't say no to Coach Freeman. And then eventually I wanted to stay close to home. I didn't want to leave my family and miss my brothers and sister growing up.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, you mentioned already that you're obviously a great baseball player as well, going to play baseball at Notre Dame. And I know, we talked about Coach Kelly leaving, but also, Link Jarrett leaves this offseason as well. And it's like they just had such success. Can you talk to me how important it was for you to just be able to play baseball? Because obviously, I know you're a very, very accomplished baseball player as well.
Yeah, so that was probably outside of academics, the biggest part of my recruitment outside. And so that was the baseball football piece was something that I wasn't going to waver on, and so being able to kind of sit down with the coaches and have a plan and them go with me through the plan about how it was going to work was super important before I committed, before I did anything. And so that was something that when Coach Kelly was there, they sat down with me, both baseball and football. They talked it out before and then found a plan and sat down with me and showed me exactly how the plan would go. And so, that was super important that they showed me that before I even committed, just knowing that. So it really showed me that I could do both and that both parties involved were completely okay with it.
And when you were doing your research on it, Drake, being able to play both at the same time, did you do research on guys like Jeff Samardzija, for instance, guys like Torrey Hunter Jr.'s, players that had literally done the same thing at Notre Dame? I'm just curious on how that process was, maybe just evaluating some of the schools that have had success having two sport athletes.
Yeah, I definitely did some research on it, kind of looked into it, what it was like for them, and then also getting to Auburn, I got to talk to one of their baseball football players, and one of the coaches actually was a baseball football player, and he said, no matter where you go, this is what it's like. He just kind of told me what the schedule was going to entail, and he said you're not going to have very much free time, but that's if that's what you want, that's what's going to happen. And so, just kind of hearing it, being able to see everything that was. And then obviously learning more about it through other sources was something that was very helpful for what I wanted to do.
Man, you're a little bit of a madman, Drake, I must admit, man, because you're going to play football, you're going to play baseball, you're going to one of the finest academic institutions in the country. Can you just talk to me a little bit about what you plan on majoring at Notre Dame and just how much, you mentioned already, but how much that academic piece really was to cementing your decision?
So I'm gonna major in finance, and so kind of just going through the process, it was more of the 40 for 4 or the 4 for 40. Notre Dame is gonna offer you something that most places just can't offer you. You get a Ivy League education with a top tier football program and now a top tier baseball program that in the past couple of years has done incredible things. So that was the biggest piece, was the education I can do. If football doesn't work out or baseball doesn't work out, I'm still going to go do something with that degree, just because of the name on it. There's a Notre Dame degree. You're going to do something wherever it may be in the world. You're going to do something with that degree. So that was probably the biggest piece outside of football, baseball, was just being able to do something if those sports didn't work out, and Notre Dame offered me one of the best degrees to do that.
Let me ask you a tough one, because obviously I know you love football. I can tell just by the way you play, but I know the baseball mix as well. So what was the first love, man? Which one was the sport that, I guess, I don't want to say came natural to you, because I'm sure they both came pretty natural. Which one was the one, like when you first remember you getting into sports, that was your sport early on?
Probably football came more natural.
Okay.
But baseball was just something that like I just loved to play it. Like it was like football, I just got out there and just kind of was athletic, so I could do it. But
Yep.
baseball, just kind of everything that goes into it. I love it so much that it eventually became natural. But at the beginning, football was probably a little more natural to me than baseball was.
Gotcha. And I wanted to ask you this, man, because I'm a former linebacker as well. So I love watching your game. I mean, you're a kid that plays in space a ton. You can do the true stack position. You have great eyes. You have now the opportunity. We mentioned Coach Freeman, obviously, who played college football at the highest level at Ohio State, was a 5th-round draft pick by the Chicago Bears. But James Laurinaitis is on the staff, who another Ohio State legend, also the St. Louis Rams all-time leading tackler. People don't know that too much. And then Al Golden, who was just coaching linebackers in the Super Bowl last year, part of the Cincinnati Bengals. What's it like for you, man, to be around so many great guys that have so much experience at the position you're going to play and guys that can really mentor you to be the best version of yourself?
Yeah, it's super exciting going there and just knowing how much better I'm going to become because of Coach Freeman, Coach Golden, Coach Laurinaitis. Just kind of the mentoring and expertise they have over so many different levels is super exciting. Just to be able to know that how much they're going to help me. Like they have so much more expertise than I could know of at probably any stage, and they're still learning. So whatever they tell me, I'm going to take their word for it just because of what they've done in their careers. And so that's something that's probably super exciting, especially for me as a linebacker going in to, a linebacker as a head coach, a linebacker as DC, and a linebacker as one of my coaches. So all 3 are linebackers, and I'm going to get to play in a linebacker's defense with all that knowledge around me. It's super exciting to, be able to do that.
So on the next level, Drake, because I think that the thing that makes you so good outside of just being a really good athlete is that I think that you could potentially play Mike on the next level. You could play Will. I think you could play Rover in the system too, if that's what they want you to do. How does this staff see you at the next level positionally? Like, where do they see you maybe fitting early or long term? What's the fit? Just curious on what the outlook is from them.
So they have said that I probably will start out in Will. But they said they don't know. Just because of all the positions I played. Like I played outside for my team last year. I played, I went down to DN. So they said possibly you could even play Viper. And so they said, maybe Mike right now would be a little tough just because I got to get a little bit bigger, they said, just to be a true Mike linebacker. But really they said they don't know just because of my skill set.
Yeah. Well, and you're seeing it on the team right now. I mean, there's Maris Loifau is a kid that will play Will and he'll play a little bit in space. And then the next play, he'll be down at Viper kind of on ball as a defensive end as well. So is that exciting for you? Just having those types of possibilities. I mean, I was a guy that was a pretty versatile player in my own right. Like just being able to play so many different positions and affect the football game. Is that kind of like something that you really pride yourself in, I guess?
Yeah, it's something that I've definitely worked to be able to do. I've wanted to be able to play different positions. And so, being able to play all different linebacker positions just because of what I've done in high school has really helped me just learn kind of what everything's going to be like, a little bit like the basics of it. And then hopefully that'll translate a little bit to the next level.
Well, and let me ask you a couple of recruiting questions, and I'll let you get out of here, Drake. Again, I really appreciate the time. Like I said before we started, you have become, in my opinion, kind of the leader of 2023. Like you're there every single week. Obviously, you're an Indiana kid, but you're there at every home game. It seems like I know you went out to Vegas for the game, so you're there, man. How important is it for you, I guess, maybe to be one of the leaders of the class? Because I mean, obviously, I feel like you're like relishing in that role for this team right now, or for the recruiting class, I should say.
Yeah, so it's something that the Notre Dame coaches had talked to me about just because of where I'm located. They really wanted me to kind of be the head of it just because I can be there every weekend. I can help with guys because I can go meet them and show them like why I committed and like what this place means without, maybe being 7-8 hours away, which would be hard to get there for a lot of the games. So being an hour away just makes it so much easier for me. And so that allows me just to be able up there, be able to meet with guys, meet with recruits, talk with them, kind of explain why I did what I did, and kind of just hopefully show them that, Notre Dame is the place for them too.
And how have the relationships been building with the 2023 class? I mean, I've even seen you, just kind of chatting it up on the sidelines with some 2024 kids as well, kind of laying the land that way. But how has it been just, group chat and being able to meet everybody and kind of growing those relationships?
Yeah. So, our classes, we have great relationships kind of with everybody. So, we talk all the time in our group chats. And so I think this weekend will be like one of the first weekends that the entire class has really gotten up there to a game. So it's super exciting to finally be able to see everyone at the game together because, we've kind of gotten talk, maybe group here, group there, and never fully got everyone together. So that'll be exciting for the first week. But we all have great relationships, and even with the 2024s, I talked to Cam Williams, CJ Carr a lot, and so it's just we all have great relationships up and down either class.
And I know people love the recruiting rankings. You guys are pretty much across the board, the number 3 class in 2023. This is a chance, in my opinion, to be an historic class for Notre Dame, obviously. And I know when we started the interview, you mentioned already, wanted to get up there and win national championships and do all that type of stuff. Just, I guess my big over-encompassing question for you, Drake, is just how good do you think that this 2023 class can be, and how important do you think it is for what Marcus Freeman and this staff is trying to build?
Yeah, I think this is the class that will, help put Notre Dame where it's supposed to be. Notre Dame's a top-tier program. They've been a top-tier program for many years, and so I think that this class will be one of the classes that kind of just puts it over the edge a little bit more. And so that's kind of what this class can bring is we can help put Notre Dame back where it's supposed to be in the national sense, and not just, the team that got there, whatever it may be, but we can help, establish that, this team got there and they deserve to get there. And, beat the SEC teams. That's the ultimate goal, is to beat the SEC teams and win the national championship. And I think that our class can really do that. We're a pretty special class.
Yeah. And I know I've talked about you already, Drake, the leadership you have, the quality of player. I mean, like I said, I think you could do a little bit of everything defensively. But I guess my last question for you is just for all the Notre Dame fans that are listening on this channel. Obviously, they're big fans of everything that you bring to the field. But what are some things, because you're going to be an early enrollee, if I remember correctly, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. So what can the fans expect from you when you get there in winter, going in the workouts, get the school thing happening? As a person, as a player, like what should they expect from Drake Bowen when you finally get to South Bend full time?
I'm just a goofy kid. I just get to do my work, do my school, and then just kind of hang out. That's really what I do. I'm a pretty chill person. And so, but when it's go time, I'm fully locked in. So, football practice, baseball practice, workouts, that's kind of my release from everything, release from the world. And so, that's when I get to fully be locked in. But other than that, I'm a pretty chill person. But, yeah, so that's kind of what I've really done throughout whatever. It's just, I've been a chill person. But then when it's time to go, I'm locked in.
Yeah, well, glad to hear you're locked in, man. And I know that all the Notre Dame fans on the channel, again, are really excited about you, about the class, everything that you guys are going to be able to accomplish. Again, joined by Drake Bowen, star linebacker 2023 class, future Notre Dame captain, I believe, and Notre Dame star. Drake, I really appreciate it again, man. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for taking the time on a Thursday night. Look forward to catching you up with you again, man. But thank you so much for joining the Irish Breakdown podcast.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
All right, Sean. Well, there you are, man. That is Mr. Drake Bowen, star linebacker in the 2023 recruiting class for the University of Notre Dame. So, love the interview, man. I would say this. He had it. I mean, so he had a playoff game on Friday nights. He had obviously the visit to Notre Dame on Saturday, and he still took the time on a Thursday nights at 9:30 Eastern time to give me a little bit of his time, which was fantastic. So hope everybody enjoyed the conversation piece, because I think everybody that follows him on Twitter knows that Drake Bowen, the leadership that he has as far as being in this class, all that good stuff. But I mean, Sean, again, you heard it right from the man's mouth, right? Like big aspirations, big goals. It was awesome to hear, obviously, from Drake and everything that he's been cooking on behind the scenes for the class.
That's what we've been saying on this show for like the last month. There's a belief in the 23 class that they're the class. They are the change at Notre Dame. They fully believe that. And it's not to take a shot at any other class. They just feel like they're the difference. And that's why that's why they can look at what has taken place on the field and still believe in the vision. Because they feel like they're the difference makers.
Yep.
And you heard it right there. We just talked about what Christian Gray said before the interview. And you hear it, Drake Bowen echoes that. We're going to be the class that beats the SEC teams, not just gets to the college football playoffs. We're going to get there, we're going to beat them, and then we're going to win a championship.
Yep. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Sean. Finish your thought.
It's just special. It's just special. And this is amazing. Because I think I can release this. This has been a conversation that Drake and I have had probably since March. He talked about the proximity to campus for him and how easy it would be for him to be at games, be at the campus, and recruit other guys. Drake was really reluctant to be that guy. He is, man, to talk to this kid, he's so shy, just to himself. It's always yes, sir, no, sir. Just like the fact that you got what you got out of him for an interview kind of shows how he's like evolved into what he's been asked to do in this recruiting class and kind of opened up to be that type of communicator, because that wasn't who he was 5-6 months ago.
Yeah. And
he was reluctant to take the task, and he was waiting to pass the baton. This is the tidbit I want to give. He was the one reaching out to Dante saying, "You're the one. Like, I've been doing it to this point, but you're the one that's going to take us over the top. You should be the face of the class."
Yeah.
And this was the communication he was having with Dante. And we saw what happened, but he never wavered.
No.
It never took place, and he just kept the baton and kept running. And you see what the class has kind of evolved into. But yeah, he was very reluctant at first, to do what Notre Dame and the staff asked him to do. But he did it, and he ran with it. And like I said, in the middle of it, he was ready to kind of pass the baton, because most quarterbacks are the face of any recruiting class. Let's just face it. But once things kind of went to the left, he kept going. He connected with the 24 class, and they kind of took his energy and kind of built their own thing in 24. And this is what we have right now. We're sitting here on a Monday morning at the beat down over Dabo and making him whine in his press conference. And we're here. We're here talking about 28 kids possibly in this recruiting class. That's amazing.
Wow, man. Yep. And we're very blessed, obviously, to cover Notre Dame football, right? Like, I feel very fortunate to be able to be here with you to talk about this, man, to have 850 plus people in this chat throughout the duration of this show. So hit that like button, hit that notification bell, subscribe to this podcast. Word of mouth is always very appreciated. 5-star reviews if you're listening to us via podcast, your favorite podcast platform. Because now, Sean, that ends the second section of this podcast, talking to Mr. Drake Bowen. Great interview edition. We will now get into the mailbag portion of the show. All right, Sean, so let's get it kicked off, man. We have a whole lot of questions here, and we had some super chats during the show. So if you all had questions, you can keep kind of putting them in there, but we're going to start rolling through some of these super chats. Matt, 2011 GT gave us a super chat. Thank you so much, Matt. He just threw a squirrel in there. Sean, I don't know if you listened to our show on Friday, but I said that my name used to be Squirrel Roberts. It was a joke, but people are running with it. So if you want to give me $5 for saying my name is Squirrel, that's fine with me, man. That's fine with me. So appreciate you, Matt.
By the way, great post last week you did. Your Photoshop is amazing, bro.
Oh, wasn't it good? Wasn't it good?
Yeah.
I didn't seem to like it that much, but I'm like, that's gold, man. What do you mean? All right, cool. Oh, man. I'm glad that you're such a good sport with it, though, Sean. I really am.
Absolutely.
We had another super chat from Corey D, who said, does Jason Ademilola have another year of eligibility remaining? So, to my knowledge, Sean, and I just want to make sure I have this correct. So, this is his fifth year, right? Is this his fifth year? Yeah, so he does not. Justin has an extra year of eligibility if he wants to, right? Because Jason did not redshirt as a true freshman. He gets the 2020 year because of the COVID year of eligibility. So Jason is done of eligibility after this year. Justin Ademilola, who did redshirt as a true freshman, would have the fifth year of 6, right? So he'll have his 6th year of eligibility if he chooses so. But Corey, no, Jason does not have another year of eligibility. But great question there, sir. Great question. Sean, let's go to this one. James Bucker, thank you for the super chat, James. Said, I come from Arkansas every 2 years to a game because that's all I can afford. And I said, do I go to Clemson or Stanford? I came to the Stanford game. Oh, James. James, if it makes you feel any better, I went to the Marshall game. So there could be worse things in the world, though. But yeah, next year we'll get you right, James. Come back for another game. And but I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I'm sorry. But at least you got to see a big victory on Saturday. Not in person, but still. Gives you the feels, man. Gives you the feels. Let's go to this one. Sean, again, thank you so much for these super chats, folks. Michael Miller said, I really like CJ. Possibility he reclassifies. Sean, we've talked about this a ton, so I guess I'll kick it over to you to start this conversation. Possibility CJ reclassifies to 2023. I still think it's 2024 is ultimately the decision, and we're running out of time here.
No, and he confirmed it this weekend to multiple sources at Notre Dame. He confirmed that he won't be reclassifying. He'll be staying with this class in 2024. So that conversation can kind of fade away.
Yep. And we're going to talk about 2023 quarterback targets here during this mailbag as well. So Notre Dame is also treating it as that conversation is out the door, to Sean's point. So yes, the CJ Carr reclassification stuff should be done at this point. Not going to happen unless something drastically changes. Charlie Weiss's last belt loop said, so would Notre Dame take 29 if if Keon comes to Notre Dame last minute? That's a great question, Charlie. From my conversations, I don't think it would stray past 28. So if Keon did ultimately want to come to Notre Dame and he had a change of heart at the end, I would say that they would probably just take one of the 2 athletes we talked about in the class between Khalil Barnes and Brandon Hillman. So I think that they would still stick to 28. Sean, I don't know. 29 is a big number, man. I don't know if they could stress it that far, man. That's a big number.
Look, they wouldn't do this. I know they wouldn't do this. But if they were at 28 and somehow the afternoon of signing day, they got a phone call into the office and coach, I want to come back. They might do some reshuffling. They might be asking somebody, would they like to be a preferred walk-on? Like, hey, can you? And let's shuffle some things around because that's a kid you want. Like you don't say no to Keon Keeley if he wants to come to your school.
You do not. You do not. I agree completely. With that, Sean. And Sean, I actually wanted to start this mailbag off with a conversation. I completely forgot. So please, out there, excuse me. I wanted to lead off with this because there was somebody in the chat earlier that put in a report from a certain website about Jaden Greathouse, Sean. So apparently on a message board, I'm not going to throw the person under the bus because like we know who it is. It was talked about in the chat. And Brian, as we speak, I believe, has put something on the message board at boards.irishbreakdown.com, or he's going to. Mm-hmm. So what basically paraphrasing what someone said about Jaden was Jaden's going to Texas this weekend on a visit. This was something that Notre Dame knew about. It was planned for a long time. Sure. But then the other part of the conversation is that Notre Dame is starting to feel nervous about Jaden Greathouse. Okay, so that's the report that's going out there. Mm-hmm. The good thing is that we had a pre-recorded interview with Drake Bowen is that behind the scenes, I got to get on the horn with Brian and we talked to a couple people. We are told that there is no inkling from anyone around the Notre Dame side of things that is nervous about Jaden Greathouse. This was something that was in the plans. They have had constant communication with Jaden Greathouse. He has given them no reason to start to be nervous. So from our sources to your ears out there, you should not be worried about Jaden Greathouse right now. You just shouldn't. Okay? So
we're going to have fun on signing day, boy. This is
and I know Brandon just put something he said. The post said, the quote was somewhat worried. Brandon, and thank you for correcting me. So the quote was somewhat worried. We are told that they are not worried at all about Jaden Greathouse. So no worry, even in the slightest. So just wanted to put that out there for the folks. So great questions. Keep us moving forward here, but just wanted to debunk a little bit of some bad information that's put out there. Christopher Morgan with the super chat. I was in the stadium for the game, bought a bench cushion, and only sat on it for 7 minutes during halftime eating a pretzel. On my feet the whole game. Go Irish. Sean, I've heard this from every commit. Nobody was sitting the whole game, man. Like everyone was just up.
That's great to hear. That's great to hear, man, because we were getting reports about the wave of orange that was walking around town, coming to campus, walking into the stadium, and you start to worry about the atmosphere and what it would be like. And even through the TV, it was like, yo, stadium is rocking.
Yep.
And like you said, you could see everyone was on their feet. It was absolutely fantastic atmosphere, man. Shout out to everyone that was there. Everyone that was part of that atmosphere. Salute to you. You did an amazing job in making the experience for the team and the recruits what it needed to be.
Yep. It was it's magical, man. I wish I could have felt it. Again, I had my guy in the chat. I don't know if I should put this out in the universe, but my guy Dan out there offered some tickets to Clemson for me, Sean, but I wasn't able to go. Just Joliet was sick kind of going into the weekend, and it was just very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate.
What was your biggest reaction moment sitting at home?
As far as the most excitement that I got in the thing, or was there like So I don't know if there was a biggest moment, man. Like again, like you could feel the electricity through the TV set, which was bizarre, man. Like that doesn't happen, right? I mean, I guess it would just be how the game got kicked off with the I mean, not the first drive, but like when the field goal got blocked, I was just like kind of in awe for a second, Sean. I'm like, the 6th block punt of the season? That is bananas, man. It's absolutely bananas. So yeah, it was wild, brother. Just wild. I mean, I felt because look, this is what happened. I got offered these tickets. I'm starting to talk to Caitlin about it. You know, I'm like, cool. She's very open to it. You know, she's like, yeah, no, it sounds like a good idea. Like, you know, starting to get the wheels turning. Yeah. Like, cool. We can make this work. You know, make this work. And then it was like Friday morning. Juliet woke up with a fever. She wasn't feeling well. I'm just like, Caitlin still said, like, you can go, but I'm like, I'm not going to leave my sick 2-year-old. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to do that. So it was it was very, very unfortunate. And I would say the second closest part of the game, though, Sean, was the pick six by Benny. Man, was like, we got something going here, man.
That was it for me. I was still nervous at 14-zip.
I was too. Especially after the pass interference call on that drive. And it's like,
I still had anxiety.
Yes.
And then the pick six. There was no one here, and I was talking trash like I was talking to a Clemson fan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this trash team out of here, dude. I was lit in my house by myself. I was just talking to the TV, like, get this trash team out of here. Talking about the ACC. These dudes bums. I was letting it go, man.
Sean, I can see you talking to a TV, man. I can see you talking to a TV.
Man. I was like, man, these dudes are trash. They're bums. Get them out of here. I was like, that freshman, get him out of here too. He's trash. I was letting it ride, man. I was letting it ride.
It was bonkers, man. But I could really see you like just talking to a TV, which is pretty hysterical.
It gets me to that moment. Like, there's always that one moment. It can go either way. It can be a moment that makes me mad, a moment that gets me excited. But it's either way is that one moment. Because I'm pretty stoic watching the game. I really don't react to things. I sit there, I watch, and I'm like, okay. It's always one moment that gets me though.
You know what happened to me, Sean? After that, right? They have to go back on defense. And I literally said said out loud, I was like, put your foot on their throat. Go for the kill. Yeah. And my wife looked at me and she's like, are you talking to me? And I'm like, no, babe, I wasn't talking to you. She's like, oh, so you're just talking to yourself? I'm like, yep. I was talking to myself. Yes, I was.
I think it was one of the Aldrich runs.
Yeah.
One of the Aldrich runs got me up too. I was like, run them over. I was so amped by the time it got to about 7-8 minutes in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Oh, man. We need another game like that, man. Hopefully there's many more to come in the Marcus Freeman era. I think there is. I really do think there is, but we'll keep moving. Can I say this, Sean? I don't want to bring up the super chat because everyone's keep talking about it a ton. And I just want to put it out in the universe. Anthony Hill, yes, we get it. Anthony Hill, star linebacker 2023 class, decommitted from Texas A&M. Yes, we know. Someone asked if Notre Dame is going to be in the conversation for that. The answer is no. No. I think he's going to be hard to get out of the state of Texas. So we'll just leave it at that and keep us moving, man. We had another couple of super chats here I want to get to before we have a bunch more questions. Christopher Morgan said, I was on the field during post-game press with Marcus Freeman, watched when I got home. When was the last time during post-game when you hear fans in background live? Sean, I retweeted the video because I was like, that's my coach, man. Like, he was just ear to ear, smiles.
Yeah.
You heard the background noise. Fans cheering. He gets up there, and it's just like quick change, business mode back to it, man. I'm just like, I can't remember it. I can't remember that type of cheering going into a press conference, man. It was different. It was really different.
You can hear them saying, oh, while he's giving a press conference. It's like, so it was almost like they just let them stay there for the ambiance of the entire press conference. Like, you would think they would be trying to usher them out of the stadium. Right? No, keep them there. Like, let's enjoy, keep this whole vibe going all night long. It was fantastic.
It was dope, man. Fantastic. It was so dope. I just like my dad was like texting me after the game because he's a big Notre Dame fan, lifelong fan, and just like, what? He's like, when are you guys doing your post game show? I want to listen. Oh, chill out, man. I don't know exactly when it's going to start yet. It's just so funny. It's awesome, though. Another super chat from Christopher Morgan. Christopher, thank you so much for the super chats, man. I appreciate you. He said, my voice is still a dumpster fire from Saturday, screaming like a maniac. Great win, great day, great fans. Next year, don't let us get a pass offense plus quarterback. Real talk. Talked about this, Sean. If Notre Dame is a lot closer than people think, man, they're going to look at the 6-3. They're going to look at a loss to Marshall and Stanford, and they're going to be like, just like this game's just an outlier, right? Like, it doesn't. If you look at the last 2 weeks, what they have been doing and the identity that they are absorbing, man. I truly believe this, and I do. And I could be wrong, but this is what I believe. If Notre Dame figures out the quarterback position this offseason, they figure it out, and their passing offense takes a massive step forward. Not a little step, but they need a massive step. I mean, I'll be honest, right? They have shown that on a weekly basis the last 2 weeks that you can beat good football teams to very good football teams without much of a passing offense. If they figure that part of the game out this offseason, Sean, I think that they can compete at the highest level. I do, man. I really do. It doesn't have to be an historic pass offense, but it has to be good enough where you become a more balanced football team. Yeah. And that's just kind of the step that needs to be taken here, in my opinion.
The team they bring back next year, in my opinion, is going to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't, let's just say it's another quarterback competition, right? Still think this team still has the potential to be scary. Yep. And can beat every team on their schedule.
Mm-hmm.
But they go to an entirely different level if they solve that quarterback situation. They really do. It's like, you're right. They're closer than most people think.
I really think so, man. Because Sean, I know the game is different than it once was, right? Like there's an evolution that happens on every level of football. But the cores of how to win in a football game, win in the trenches. Mm-hmm. We saw that, right? Offensive line was dominant. Defensive line was dominant in this football game. Ability to run the football. Those are the staples of winning games, right? Coaching has been much better over the last couple of weeks and consistently moving forward. I believe in Marcus Freeman. So if the coaching staff is there, if you have the ability to win in the trenches, in the hard part of the field, if you now figure out how to now take advantage of space, that's the next step, right? If you can take advantage of space, that's a winning formula, man. They have the baseline for a winning formula. Is it there yet? No, it's not. But my point is that it's a lot closer to getting there than I think some people kind of appreciate. Like, I think it's getting close, man. It's getting there. I think it is.
And the solution to that, like you said, like I see someone saying it's either that or wait till Carr arrives. Like, you're not expecting Carr to just come in and start.
Mm-hmm.
That's not ideal. Like, for Carr to play and start for you in 25, okay. But the depth and the team that you're going to have at the skill position, you will want to have somebody that has played, even if you get, and just throwing this out there, not saying this will happen, even if you get a Tyler Buckner to stick around, somebody comes in and starts next year, and Tyler ends up being more experienced and a more developed, polished quarterback in 24. Now, that was just an example. I'm not hinting at anything. It's nothing that I know. Just use that as an example. That would be perfect, But I don't think you want him starting as soon as he sets foot on campus.
No. And it's going to be interesting. I know people have been talking about the transfer portal, and I think we have a question about the transfer portal versus 2023 quarterback. I think the answer is yes to both, right? Like, you need both in there because, Sean, for me, options give you a larger opportunity for a bigger, like, it gives you more margin for error, right? Yeah. If you have 4 talented players, you have a better opportunity to maybe get 1 great player, right? If you only have 2, you get yourself less of a margin for hitting on a very important position like quarterback. So I think the answer is yes. And I don't know who that transfer quarterback is going to be. I've heard a couple of names floated out there, but they're players that aren't even in the portal right now. And there's no guarantee that they will be in the portal. So we'll keep talking about that conversation, but let's move on to some more questions. Seth Green said, with Texas A&M's disastrous season, if there's a mass exodus of transfers from that program, was there anyone from last year's class that Notre Dame was high on that they'd go after? So, Sean, I know Anthony Hill was the guy that we were just asked about for the 2023 class, right? Like, that's a kid that Notre Dame offered. They like, sure, but I don't think they have a chance to get into that. I mean, Look, for 2023, Sean, and I know this is probably referring to also like 2022. So like some people will talk about like Anthony Lucas. I don't know what the chances are of that, right? I'm just sticking to 2023 here for a second. I don't think there's anybody that realistically makes sense with where you are. Like you're at 23 commits right now. You have the last few guys left on the board. Or is there a player that may be too good to turn away? It's possible, but off the top of my head, Sean, so they authored Anthony Hill in the class. The lineman that's out of Don Bosco Prep here in Jersey, that's name's escaping me. Yeah, Chase Basantis. He was a kid that Notre Dame targeted early, but fit didn't really make sense. Yeah. So, my long answer to get to a short answer is not really, Sean. I mean, it's always possible, but especially for 2023, I don't see that reality.
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. I totally agree with your assessment on that.
All right, well, let's get to a few more questions. Let's go from Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. Let's go IB Nation. Ryan, tell me we are flipping a 2023 quarterback, and why is Dante Moore thinking about Michigan State? Sean, you want to start with the second half of that, man? That's obviously been a big topic of conversation, right?
Well,
Dante Moore.
I think it goes back to whether or not it's really not about Dante Moore. No. It's really about Coach Lanning, right? And I think Coach Lanning, when he took the Oregon job, and this is just speculation, but, just really thinking about it, when he took the Oregon job, he had no clue what was about to happen in the Pac-12. He had no clue that USC and UCLA were about to defect to the Big Ten. So now for him moving forward competitively, is it really beneficial for him to be at Oregon? Would he really be able to compete? Yeah, he could probably dominate a lesser conference, but how hard would it be for an Oregon squad to get into the college football playoff? Expansion is coming, but that's like another 2 seasons away, if I'm not mistaken. So could there be some reality in him wanting to get back to the SEC, rumored to be going to the Auburn job? Could be. I don't know why he would want to go to Auburn at this point, unless they just really write him an amazing check.
I think Dan is a Southeastern guy too, right? So that could go in the conversation, I guess.
He is at heart. And if he talks to the guys closest to him, Kirby, Will Muschamp, they're probably going to tell him to go to Auburn. Mm-hmm. If we're being honest. That's the first thing. And maybe Dante is hearing that. And maybe Dante just got to the point where, look, Oregon was a choice because of the situation that happened with Notre Dame. I made the choice. I'm not feeling the choice anymore. I don't want to go away from home. Michigan State is a fallback. Mm-hmm. He could go to Michigan, but then he would have to sit behind J.J. McCarthy. I'm not sure if it's actually realistically what's going on, until I see him show up to a game. And then Michigan State isn't exactly in a position.
Lighting the world on fire?
Right. To whereas you'll be like, okay, I get it. I see why he wants to go to Michigan State this year. No. So it's all confusing. Maybe, and until this particular writer that crystal balled him to flip comes out with credible information to kind of back that up and led him to do that. Yep. But yeah, the Dan Lanning thing to me is the more interesting aspect.
Yeah.
Of the entire story.
Because Oregon's got a couple really nice recruits, obviously, in 2023. Think of Jurion Dickey, you think about Dante Moore. Mm-hmm. What happens to that class if Dan Lanning does leave? It's interesting, Sean. And Dan Lanning's got things in Oregon going pretty well right now. They only have 1 loss in the season. It's to the best team in the country right now in Georgia. I don't know.
Second, a top 3 offensive line, in my opinion. But, those –
playing well.
those are not his guys on the offensive line. Those are Mario's guys.
He's even making Bo Nix, Brian's boy, look presentable, which is funny.
Right.
So
if he does leave, does Bo Nix go back with him?
Wouldn't that be funny if Bo Nix returns to Auburn? That'd be fantastic. That would be awesome.
Oh,
I doubt it, but you never know. I guess never know. Wait, another super chat, Sean. Oh, sorry. First part of the question, from Josh. Josh, I do believe that Notre Dame is going to flip a 2023 quarterback. I still think there's going to be a 2023 quarterback in the class. I also didn't think that they're going to get a transfer portal quarterback this offseason. So I think there will be options on the table, right? Like I do. We've talked about it on the board. We talked about Eden Childs, this is a guy that Notre Dame is looking at extensively from Oregon State. Then they're going to continue to kind of kick the tires with Avery Johnson, Kansas State commit, but I don't think that one's super realistic. But I do think there's a couple of quarterbacks that are kind of being thrown out there right now that Notre Dame is going to get into here moving forward. So boards.irishbreakdown.com, though, if you want that more in-depth information. But Aiden Childs is a guy to keep an eye out for sure. Mm-hmm. Super chats from Sean Kelly. Thank you for the super chat, Sean. Was on the field for the post-game interview with Marcus Freeman. Got a great video and handshake from the man himself. P.S. My voice has also been gone ever since Saturday. Go Irish. Sean, I think it might be good that maybe we didn't go to the game on Saturday, man. We wouldn't be able to do podcasts right now.
You know what? You're probably right.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to try. Like, you know what?
Yep.
Yeah. We probably would have been sitting here with some nice tea, peppermint, trying to give you guys the best we can. But we enjoyed that game. That's a once in a lifetime opportunity, Ryan. Like, you can't pass those up. You deal with the consequences of that.
Yeah. I call into Brian this morning like, hey man, I don't think I can come into work today. Here's my man Dan Mulligan, DM Notre Dame 13. He said, any update on Justin Scott, Wesley Woodyard, really good linebacker in the NFL, but that's Peyton Woodyard, the 2024 safety out of St. John Bosco in California, or Emmett Mosley, wide receiver out of California as well, who is the son of former Notre Dame player Emmett Mosley. Sean, let's start with Justin Scott, I guess. I know there was a chance he could make it to Notre Dame this past weekend. He ended up not making the trip, but any updates that you can provide on Justin Scott?
Well, that's in the midst of a playoff run. I have no clue. Like, the indication of speaking to him weeks before is that Notre Dame was going to be one of his game day trips, and it was probably going to be Clemson. He's been on a run. He's been down to Miami. He had been to Michigan, if I'm not mistaken, 2 weeks ago. And, Cam Williams is in constant contact with him. They're great friends. And even Cam was like, yeah, I talked to him this week, but it wasn't about football. So until I'm able to reestablish contact and get a reason why things didn't go as he told us and planned for them to go, we'll see. And talking to Brian, it's like, man, there's some uncertainty there, with him as far as, him not getting there. So we'll see how it plays out. Look, Justin Scott is going to be a dogfight.
Yep.
Like, you got Georgia, Alabama, like Ohio State. It's a dogfight. Michigan. So if you want him, you got to go get him. You have to go get him, right?
Yep.
So that's it. He's in your backyard. There's no way you shouldn't be close to the top of his list right now. And Emmett Mosley, I talked to him a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
His father played for Notre Dame. He's a Chicago. His entire family is actually from Chicago. So he remains very interested in Notre Dame, and he bears watching as well because everything that happened with the Pac-12 impacts him as well. Because his top schools were Notre Dame, USC, UCLA. And with USC and UCLA coming to the Midwest, that makes them even more attractive for him, being a Chicago kid, with his family being in the Chicago area. So, if he chooses one of those teams, he's still close in a sense because he'll be playing half of his games, nearby. So it's interesting. It's going to be a tight race for him as well.
Yep. But obviously Notre Dame, with the connections they have to the program, is obviously in a good spot here. I would also say that for Peyton Woodyard, who is the cousin of Kyle Hamilton, the 2024 class, high 4-star caliber player. Look, it's similar to what you just said about Mosley, right, Sean? He's got clear connections to the Notre Dame staff, and obviously with his cousin being a star player for Notre Dame. I believe it's kind of in a similar spot, Dan, right now. It's something where he really likes Notre Dame a lot, right? But there's also a lot of schools that are coming after Peyton Woodyard. Like there is, man, USC, Alabama, Georgia, like any school that's worth anything is coming after Peyton Woodyard, right? But I do think that Notre Dame is near the top of his list. I think it's going to be a dogfight, but I think Notre Dame's in a good spot for where they are. I also think, though, for me, Peyton, from every time I've talked to him, I don't think he's a kid that's in a rush to make a decision, right? So it's not going to end for a while, and there's going to be a lot of suitors for him. So it's kind of where we're looking at with those three at the moment. It's going to be dogfights, as Sean said. Brandon Plesner asked Sean, Ryan, is Barnes, Hillman, and Caleb Smith, that is Khalil Barnes, that is Brandon Hillman, that is Caleb Smith, all takes together in the class? We talked about this, Sean, during the first half. I just wanted to kind of reiterate it. Brandon, right now, Notre Dame is good with getting to 27 from everything we're hearing from sources. So right now, 2 out of 3 is where you're looking at right now, right? I think they would like Caleb Smith in the class, and I think they would like one of Barnes or Hillman, depending how things shake out. But there is a reality where if the numbers make sense, they could get to 28, and those all could be takes for them right now. Yeah, all together. All 3 of them are technically takes. It just depends on how people come off the board. We'll just leave it at that for now. So great question, though, Brandon. Thank you for asking. We have David Lowe, Sean, that said, Mailbag, do you see the Irish landing any more 4-star recruits in the 2023 class, or all 3 stars from here on out? David, we talk about the ranking system, right? We talk about it a little bit. I think there's an opportunity that Notre Dame could have to get a 4-star quarterback that is rated as such. But all I'll say about the ranking thing, right, is that there's a couple guys that Notre Dame is in on, the Brandon Hillmans of the world, the Khalil Barnes of the world, the Caleb Smiths of the world. In my personal opinion, a couple of those kids are better than just 3-star players, right? The film, I think, speaks something a little bit different to me, but I do think that there's an opportunity from a recruiting ranking perspective that there could be another 4-star in this class. Yes. So just bang that one out real quick. Sean, let's go to this one. Let's go to – sorry, just trying to work through. Brandon Plesner also asked, Ryan, what are your thoughts on 2025? I'm getting asked 2025 kids now, man. Let's do it. Arizona quarterback Jamar Malone, who visited for the Clemson game, would be a top choice for Notre Dame for quarterback in the top 20 in the 2025 class. So, Brandon, right now, Notre Dame has offers out to the why is Bryce Underwood, excuse me. I don't know why his name escaped me. He's fantastic. Out of the state of Michigan in 2025. They also have an offer out to Ryan Montgomery in the 2025 class as well. They do not have an offer to Jamar yet, but I spoke to Jamar and I have a visit update that kind of going along with him later. I do think that he is extremely talented. I actually just sent his film to Brian yesterday or the day before because I was like, dude, you got to check out this kid. He's talented, man. Yeah. So does not have an offer from Notre Dame yet, but I do think he's a guy the staff is keeping close tabs on. I think they should continue because I do think that if he ends up being the quarterback in 2025, I'll be very happy. He's a very talented kid. Very talented kid. I don't know if you've seen him yet, Sean, but he's pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Check out his film, but I will be running to do that later today.
You should, man. He's a extremely, extremely talented kid, man. I like him a whole lot. Very talented kid. Brandon, thank you again for the question. Let's go to Salty Virginia Peanuts. If I were Eli Bowen, even before the end of the fourth quarter, I would have had all the due diligence I needed. I'd be signing up before anyone else beat me to it. Well, Salty, it's your decision. It's not Eli's, all right? Let Eli make his decision. Just messing with you, obviously, but what's up, Salty? We're going to go now to John. Let's talk about this one. Floyd Genovese. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, Floyd. Please give me a pronunciation guide in the chat if you could. Is there more behind the Tayshaun Lyons tweet? Did you see the Tayshaun Lyons tweet someone put on the board, Sean?
Yeah, he was talking about people are going to regret this. Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, not waiting on me or something like that, like paraphrasing. Yeah. So, Sean, like this is where we are with this conversation, right? This is where we are. Look, we talked about Tayshaun Lyons. I love Tayshaun Lyons' film. He's out of Hayward, California. Like, he is a really talented wide receiver. Things were trending in a great way for Notre Dame. He wants to, just kind of let the process play out a little bit longer. Probably more of a December decision right around signing day. Notre Dame has kind of identified Caleb Smith as a guy that they also really like and a guy that they are pushing for, right? So we could have a conversation piece on whether it is a better option to go after one or the other or what the strategy that you want to use is. But either way, Notre Dame likes Caleb Smith. Like, that's just point blank to it, right? Like, they like him, and I think they prefer him to Tayshaun Lyons right now. Like, that's just, again, do I agree with it? Not necessarily. No. I mean, I really like Tayshaun, man. I do. But Brian made a good point about when we kind of were talking about this a little bit. Signing days in December, by the way. It's just someone put it in the chat.
Yeah.
This is a coherent opinion, I think, Sean. A very understandable opinion. Brian said to me, he said, "Look, we can have a conversation about whether you like Tayshaun Lyons more, whether you like Caleb Smith more, and it's either side can be correct, right? But one thing that he said that makes a lot of sense is that Tayshaun is more of a true outside receiver, right? And in this class, you already have Braylon James, you already have Jaden Greathouse, you have Dylan Edwards, who's potentially that slot, but like, is he going to be a full-time slot? Right. And Caleb Smith kind of fits more of that dynamic slot type. So I don't know if you agree with that, Sean, but that's kind of what Brian just threw out there.
I mean, it's about I think we talked about this a couple of weeks back when we were talking about the running back room with all of those guys coming in, like how it's going to look. And, Chancey Stuckey, when we talked to him back in the spring, said he wanted his room to kind of resemble a basketball team. But you have your big guy, then you have your stretch four, then you have your point guard, your shooting guard. He has all of these attributes that he wants to have. So he wants it to be a mix of guys. And then your wing guys can kind of do a little bit of everything. They can be a guard, but the same thing, they can go up, get you 50-50 balls, things like that. So safe to say in the 23 class, Jaden Greathouse is the point guard, like literally and figuratively. Like that's who he is. And, maybe they looked at that dynamic and they felt like, we have this already in the class, but they identified something else that was an attribute that they didn't have.
That was different, right? Yeah. And that's a conversation point too, Sean. It's like, is one better than the other? We can have the conversation, but like, they're not really apples to apples, right? Like, they're going to play a different spot and give something different to the team. Like, it's a legitimate conversation, man. Like, I think it's interesting. I just want to put this one out there real quick, Sean, because Zach Martin loves 2025 talk. He just said, getting the 2025 quarterback news, baby, my time. Zach, there was even a 2026 quarterback that was on campus. Dia Bell was on campus this past weekend. So before we know it, we're going to be moving right into 2024, and we're going to start talking about 2025 as well, which is tired already just thinking about it, Sean. I'm tired already just thinking about it.
Texas schools are having a hard time holding on to their players.
Just saw that, man. Jamel Johnson just decommitted from Texas as well. 4-star safety. That's, man. Weird. But guess when you have your struggles, stuff happens, right? I mean, we've seen that, right? Man. All right. Let's see. Next question here. Brandon Plesner said, Ryan, I can't remember, but is Notre Dame recruiting Mike Matthews as a corner, safety, or a defensive athlete for the 2024 class? Brandon, from what I'm hearing early is they view him as a safety in this class. He's a long kid, 6'3", 190. He could definitely play corner too if he wanted to. I think he could play rover if he fills out correctly, but safety is the spot that they seem to prefer him at the moment. Sean, let's go to – there's a lot of questions in here today, man. A lot of questions, and I absolutely love it. All right, we'll go to 99 Crowns with PK1. Sean, he said, mailbag question. Who is the better head coach, Jimbo Fisher or a squirrel? Not Squirrel Roberts, just your average backyard squirrel. Not to lead the witness, but I'm taking the squirrel. Sean, in a realistic conversation, man, how much longer does Jimbo last this, man? Does he last past the season? I know he's got that big buyout and everything, man, but, man, it's bad right now, man. It's bad.
That buyout sounds big to us, but that's short money in Texas. They have that. If they really want to get rid of him, they got it.
Mm-hmm.
They got it. They'll just space it out over 10 years and just pay it in increments. But other than that, I think the writing might be on the wall. It might be on the wall. And I can't give a reason to keep him.
The losing of money is the only real reason, man, because Sean, look, they recruiting at a high level. We know this. We talked about the class last year, right? We talked about that a ton.
Mm-hmm.
You got an historic class. You're 3-6, man. You're 3-6. That is just the point blank period to me, man. All that talent, and you are 3-6, and this is what, year 4 with Jimbo, right? This isn't year 2. It's not. It's getting to the point where you're just what is the point of keeping Jimbo? I can't really. And the other worst thing is, how did he make his reputation early on, Sean? Offensive guru, quarterback whisperer, right?
Yeah.
Well, how's that working out at Texas A&M? He can't figure out the quarterback position, man.
Can't figure it out.
Can't figure it out.
Can't develop. Can't. It's tough. $97 million.
$97 million.
That's a lot of money, boy.
That's wild, man. That's absolutely wild. Wild. Next question. Salty Virginia Peanuts. What's the temperature with Darius Hayes? He is a linebacker out of Florida. I wish he had been a visitor this weekend. Yeah, Salty, he was trying to get up there this weekend, just wasn't able to make it happen for some personal reasons I don't really get into on a podcast. So temperature, I think, is still warm. I think that Darius is a very, very articulate kid, very well-spoken, really high academic kid too. So I think Notre Dame's in a pretty good spot with him, but he's another kid, man. He's a 6'4", 215-pound linebacker from the state of Florida, right? There's going to be a lot of people after him, man. Yeah. University of Florida, I know, is pretty high on his list. The Miamis of the world are going to be in this one. Alabama's, all those schools are going to be after him, right? So, but I think it's warm. I think that Notre Dame's made a really good early impression on Darius Hayes. So I think they're in a good spot. I do think they're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, that's good to hear.
Yep. Let's go to Brian with an I said, yes, Brian with an I. Why are all the smoke last week about Roch? I know someone's going to correct me how I'm pronouncing his first name. I don't care. Roch Cholofsky. and no visit. So, Sean, this was the whole conversation about Roch, however you pronounce his name. Roach, I think, is actually, someone told me that's how you pronounce his name. Whatever. So he is the baseball player out of the state of Arizona that is committed to UCLA, that was also was supposed to visit Notre Dame this weekend. Also a dual sport athlete, very talented quarterback, expected to go in the first round potentially in the MLB draft, in the next upcoming MLB draft. So the whole backstory there, Brian, is that so he was originally supposed to come to Notre Dame this past weekend as a baseball visit. Okay, so it was not a football visit technically. It was a baseball visit, but he would also obviously had toured and talked to the coaching staff for the football, because the football staff is interested. If he does end up, playing baseball and doing his thing, but also wants to play football, Notre Dame would entertain the opportunity of him playing football on the next level as well. So wasn't able to make the trip, but it's no indictments on the Notre Dame football coaching staff. It's just things on the baseball side of things did not align for the visit this weekend. So it doesn't mean it's dead in the water, just means it wasn't able to happen on that side of things. So it's kind of where we are with that one. Okay. This question, Sean, from Milton Fan. Mailbag, what is the most common mistake when it comes to scouting, rating players, i.e. school size, etc.? This is interesting, Sean. I have a lot of thoughts on this, not even from just a high school level to college, but also from a college to NFL perspective. So I'll let you start, though, before I go on a tangent, because this is kind of like my area. Is there something that you think that evaluators maybe miss that might fall through the cracks or make evaluation tough, I guess, is the starting point?
You know what? I always point to this. It is evaluation. And I think winning, particularly at the quarterback position. A lot of times guys win multiple state championships and people just assume like, you're great. And I always point to Mount Carmel is a legendary high school program led by the late Frank Linty for over 30 years, and has something like 12 state championships, a list of NFL players that have come through that program. And Donovan McNabb was only able to win one. And they ran option. They run triple option. Like, it doesn't matter what your talent is, you're running triple option. And the next quarterback was Jordan Lynch, who ended up being quarterback at Northern Illinois.
He's a good player.
Yeah. But he was nowhere near the quarterback that Don was.
Mm-hmm.
Most people assume that, he won 3 state championships. Donovan only won 1. Like, he could be a better quarterback. And it's like, are you out of your mind? Both of them only threw the ball 10 times a game.
Yeah.
Because of the offense. So that's kind of hard, right? If you see a guy that's actually a quarterback in that system, you have limited opportunity to see who he can be as a quarterback, right? So for me, like, watching film, like, this is a little different now, right? Because everybody pretty much plays more wide open, throw the ball around. So it's probably a little bit easier to evaluate. But I think systems, when you're evaluating maybe wide receivers, like, you might be in a system that is just wide receiver friendly. And
Sure.
That's why your stats are absolutely crazy, but
that's why so many Baylor wide receivers in the past have kind of not panned out, right? Because it's like a limited route tree. They're getting schemed up, air raid stuff. Like, it's to your point.
So it's a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
And the things they mentioned, for example, school size, all of that could matter. You just have to have an eye, man. I truly believe this.
Mm-hmm.
Guys like Ryan Roberts, he has an eye.
Don't tweet me too much, man. Don't tweet
No,
me too much.
Right. Got Brian Driscoll, when he watches film, he has an eye. That's why he can say, I don't know what everybody's missing on Benjamin Morrison.
Right.
I'm telling you, this kid is good. I'm telling you, he has an eye. And if you don't have that eye, man, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have that eye for football, but I do have that eye for basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can watch a kid, just his movement, and just tell you, like, okay, that's a dude. Like, I don't need to see the stats. Don't show me that. I'm watching it. My eye tells me that he's going to be all right. And so, when you're just gifted with that, there's really nothing that can quantify the eye, right? When it comes to, like, watching film, you can't quantify that. You see things that might, go invisible. It might be invisible to other people. So, but absolutely, it's difficult, man. That's a tough way to make a living. Like, I know a friend of the family, he was a long time Major League Baseball scout. Mm-hmm. And he talked about, his success rate. Like, he scouted a lot of guys, and maybe he was right 30% of the time.
That's all you need.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure. I literally do consulting for some agents and stuff for like the NFL level. And it's like, literally, if you hit on 50%, man, at like as in that regard for NFL, like you are a god, man. Like you are. I mean, so my answer to this question, a couple things for high school perspective and then from college perspective and then like over encompassing. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. From the high school level to the college level. I think that what gets overlooked sometimes is that people lose sight of like, hey, a guy comes from a great program and the program prestige aspect of things, but that's why some people fall through the cracks. Like if a player comes from an outlier school or a small level of football, sometimes they don't get as much attention as they deserve, right? Like that's how people fall through the crack. But also the other way is also that if a player is more developed, but maybe closer to his development than others, like an offensive lineman, for instance. Like let's say an offensive lineman is 6'5", 300 pounds as a junior in high school, and he's just dominating dudes, right? Like he's just pushing them around, but he's already close to his ceiling, and he's already like at the flexibility level and the athleticism level that he'll ever be at. Like, yeah, you might dominate those kids, but when you jump up, like his development has already kind of reached almost its peak. So like those things, development is hard to predict for a 17-year-old, right? Like what's he going to be in 2 years? Some kids develop at much different rates. Some people stop growing at 16 years old. Like those things happen, right? So that's why it's tough, because you're talking about kids that are potentially still growing, still developing physically, not from a mental capacity, not from just getting stronger in the weight room. Like literally they're still growing. Like that's what makes it tough. College to NFL is a much different ballpark because you're dealing with much more known commodities, much more finished products physically. So what makes people miss, I believe, is there's some scheme stuff, like you mentioned, right? Like how does that translate?
Yeah.
But I think that most things that make people miss are preconceived biases and opinions on certain schools, right? So biases, everyone has it. Scouting biases are a thing that is ingrained in people, right? Like there might be a guy that just loves strong safety types that are, big thumpers and that's just their bias, right? So you might overvalue that type of player. Maybe you're a big pocket quarterback guy. Like that's what I like. That's my style. I don't like the new, dual threat kids that can work out a structure and do all that type of stuff. You create biases without even knowing it, the preconceived biases, which make you miss on players that could also be successful, but maybe that's not your cup of tea, right? Like you have to be aware of your biases, of your preconceived notions. Think about Ohio State quarterbacks, right? Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, Ohio State has the system. All these Ohio State quarterbacks stink at the next level. Well, not every player is the same. That doesn't mean that CJ Stroud is doomed of not being a good NFL player. It doesn't mean that Justin Fields can't be better for the Chicago Bears moving forward just because they went through a little, little tangent of like Troy Smith and Dwayne Haskins and JT Barrett, who just weren't NFL guys. Like they just weren't, right? Doesn't mean that they're doomed. So those preconceived notions and the biases behind it, those things I think really hurt evaluators to project because a lot of those things people aren't even aware of, which makes it really tough to kind of predict. So that's kind of just a few thoughts. Great question though, Milton.
That makes a lot of sense. Like when you talk about the biases, I didn't even think about that. Like you have a preference.
Everyone does. Everyone does, man. Like it makes you get super drawn to certain players. Yeah. But then sometimes those players, like you get so invested in it from just your heart's almost in it to a degree, right? So then that makes you kind of get rose-colored glasses. Like this guy's better than even I actually think because that's just my type of player. But then other players who aren't your cup of tea, you're super low on, even though in the right situation, they might be a really good football player at the next level. Like that's you, and everyone has biases, and even the best scouts, the best evaluators, they all have it. It's just about being aware of it. If you're aware of it, then you can understand it. Like, hey, sometimes I value this type of player a little bit too much. Maybe I need to pull myself back, get another opinion, take another look at film, do all that type of stuff. So it's just kind of what it looks like to me.
Do you think that, especially with this could be a legendary quarterback class? Like, it's supposed to be a really good quarterback class in 2023.
Yep.
Do you think when you get ranked, you get these 5 stars, right? Do you think there are some guys that are just looked at and kind of pigeonholed like that? I think Arch, in my opinion, has kind of been attacked.
Yes.
Like just for reasons that are like, okay, you're not even evaluating this kid. Now you're just being petty. Now you're just trying to say something, or maybe he's not your preference. The way you look at him, or he doesn't play anybody, all of that. Okay, he didn't look good when he faced Keon Keeley's team. I think it's so much to it, right? Because Ohio State, you talk about Dwayne Haskins.
Yep.
He should have stayed another year. He would have been a much better quarterback in the pros if he had stayed another year.
That's another key point, Sean, not to cut you off, but experience matters so much. Just to put that out there. I did not value that enough when I first started doing this, and understanding that, like, you can't substitute experience going from the college to the NFL level, because they expect guys to come in and be finished products or ready to go. They don't have time to develop as much as you do in a college system. So just wanted to throw that out there because you just reminded me of that.
You're spot on, like the experience. And Justin Fields, if they don't self-scout and say to themselves, you know what, we got to start implementing him in the run game and let him play, and stop just letting him drop back behind this porous offensive line. Like, let's just let him play football. Now you can start to see some growth from the young man, and who knows where that goes in his overall game, especially when they put some talent around him in the future. And maybe he is starting to break that glass for CJ Stroud to change how people look at Ohio State quarterbacks moving forward. You know, maybe he'll be the one, and he's a non-traditional quarterback in a sense. He's not your typical drop back Patrick Mahomes type of quarterback. He's just not. He's not Tom Brady. He's never going to be that. So for me, it's just amazing. I think it's important who you go to. I think it's important who you go to in college and who develops you. And it's important what coaching staff you go to, definitely in the NFL.
Yep. Agree completely.
Coaching staffs can ruin talent. It's not a question of whether someone's talented. They just ruined them.
No doubt. Sean, I just texted you something because Beefeater, aka Toe Jam, just sent me a DM that was hysterically funny. And Beefeater, I did see it, man. This was very much needed. Thank you, sir. It was fantastic. Fantastic content. I wish I could share it with everybody here, but it was very funny. Good skills there, sir. LM20 said, do y'all think Audrick's performance versus Clemson is a sign of things to come, Sean? This was a good talking point because one, Audrick had some struggles there, right? Ball security over the last couple of games. Last 2 games, first Irish running back this year to run for 100 yards in back-to-back football games. So actually, I think the first player to run for 100 yards back-to-back football games for Audrick Estime seems to have turned the corner, remedied some of that early struggles. Your thoughts on what we should expect from Estime here moving forward?
Yeah, you put it out there like the bat signal, right? Do not give up on Audrick Estime. And the coaching staff did. You know, he needed to learn ball security. Vitally important. You know, you could say it cost them the Stanford game. You would be fair in saying that. It cost them points against North Carolina. You would be fair in saying that. But one of the things that stood out to me when I was watching fall camp is that to be as big as he is, he has amazing, amazing feet to be that size, to be able to change direction, bounce runs to the outside when they are tailored to go up inside, whether it's off the guard or, you know, just running duo. He's able to bounce to the outside and without being truly a speed guy. So it really just shows that he has really good feet. I was always impressed by his feet from the time we watched him in the spring to the time we got a chance to watch him in the fall. Now he's running a little bit better under his pads. He's not getting out over his skis, as some might say. He's running with much better balance, and you're seeing it now because he's able to bounce off tackles now when he goes inside because of that balance. He did that all night against Clemson. He would make contact 3-4 yards, bam, bounce off, and now it's a 10, 12-yard game. And so that balance, along with his feet, makes him and they're just learning to the position. But this is important. The running backs look so much better, and people don't. Brian, you can explain this better, dude, because you watch film.
Mm-hmm.
You don't understand how much trust a running back has to have in his O-line. Because when you don't have trust in your O-line, it totally impacts the way you run.
Yep.
And these running backs are running fearless now because they have total trust in what they see. Like when the play is called, they know where the hole is supposed to be, and they trust that it's going to be there, and then they can react off of that. So,
for sure. Well, and I think that's the biggest difference too, Sean, in what we've seen of Logan Diggs over the last couple games, man, is I think he's trusting what he sees more. Did Logan Diggs get more athletic? No. Did he get stronger? No. It's the fact that he's trusting what's happening in front of him now, right? Yeah. And that's kind of where the running style looks a lot more confident in his process right now, which I think is making a big step for all the running backs, to be honest. So,
and that goes to Harry Heastand as well as Dylan McCullough, right? Because Dylan McCullough can teach. Harry Heastand is the type of coordinator, not coordinator, but offensive line coach that not only talks to his linemen, but he talks to the running backs to explain, this is what we're trying to do, and this is what you should see. And he asked, what did you see? And they work hand in hand. I've seen them do it in fall camp. So that is, as Logan Diggs said after the game, they proved they're the best offensive line in the country.
Yep.
They proved it.
No doubt about it, sir. No doubt about it. All right, let's move on. We only got a few more here left. We're going to roll through a few of these because we talked about this. And from Aaron Stack, he said, Caleb Smith decision timeline days or weeks. Aaron, I honestly don't have a complete picture of this, right? Like I wouldn't be surprised if it's a month. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a week. Like I don't 100% know. Like we're kind of getting more intel on that type of conversation. I imagine with how things have been trending, decommitting right before the visit and all that good stuff, I imagine it wouldn't be that long of a process, but we'll keep you all updated. That's why you should go to boards.irishbreakdown.com to get any updates as we roll through. Brandon Plesner's just said, yeah, give me Aeneas and or Kerry Smith for 2023 running back. Nate Palmer equals option C.
Look. Which one of the two would you take first? That's because you know what? You put me up on Aeneas. Because I was all in on Corey Smith.
I'm still all in on Corey Smith.
Yeah. First time I watched this film, I was like, hey, this is the dude. he is him. Get him. But then when you put me up on Aeneas, I was like, oh man. Like, okay. Yeah, get both of them. You're right, Brandon. Let's get both. If you get both of them.
And Brandon meant to write 2024 running back. He just put in the chat. I didn't even realize you wrote 2023, Brandon, but you're good there, man. You're good.
You're all good. Look, just go get those two. Forget it. Just get those two.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to take one or two in the class, Brandon. It'll be interesting. But if you can get both Aeneas and Corey Smith, you're in a good shot, man. You're in good shape. You're in shape. Because they're both so different too, Sean. Even though they're similar-ish size-wise, like I know that Aeneas is a little more filled out right now. I mean, Aeneas is much more like make you miss, versatile, all-purpose guy, while Corey Smith is like one cut and I am hitting a house call type of speed, right? Like that's Does he remind you of Jeremiah Love, Corey Smith? He reminds me of Ronald Jones that used to play at USC. That's who he reminds me of. Who Dylan McCullough coached at USC. Just putting that one out there, man. Just putting that one out there. So, yeah. Yep. Agree. And Brandon, I know Brandon just said we need to take two if those are the two. Don't disagree, Brandon. If you can make the room and it makes sense, yes, go for it. Milton Fan just said, Ryan, how do we lose Ian Moore to Ohio State? We didn't. Notre Dame didn't offer Ian Moore.
Didn't offer.
Pretty simple. So he's an in-state kid. I know they were keeping close tabs on Ian, but there were better options on the board in Notre Dame's opinion. So they didn't offer Ian more. So can't lose something that you didn't push for, right? So Ohio State likes him. Notre Dame liked him, but didn't like him to that high of a degree. So that's where we are with Ian Moore. But I think he'll be a good player for Ohio State down the line. I think he's a good football player. Brandon Plesner, Ryan, people freaking out about Jane Greathouse. Does the bad quarterback play and lack of passing attacks starting to make Greathouse second guess his decision? Brandon, I know we talked about this before. I just started this one earlier and I completely forgot. So just wanted to throw it out there that we believe that there was not much concern on Notre Dame's side of things from sources that we were talking to about Jaden Greathouse. So I don't think that there is much concern in that department right now. I want to talk about this one, Sean. This will probably be our last big conversation of the day. But Donald Drew said, no Keon, Dante, and may lose Peyton Bowen, no longer historic class. Even without, and I'll kick it to you, Sean, even without Keon Keeley and Dante Moore in this class, this is Notre Dame's highest ranking in recruiting of the 247 era. So, yes, it is a historic class from a recruiting perspective. Does it tangibly turn into the step towards prominence? That's where development happens, right? And that's where coaching matters for sure, right? But it already is a historic class. This is the best Notre Dame recruiting class that we have seen in some time. That's the facts of it. That's the facts.
I don't think I would add to that is stop being so pessimistic, man. We did just have one of the best wins of the year. Why are we talking about losing Peyton Bowen? What's going on?
Someone just said, Sean, right now you have 20 4-star or better players according to 247. So I think it's a pretty good class, man. Not to mention Peyton Bowen is now ranked as a 5-star, tremendous football player. So Charles Jagasaw, I think, is playing a legitimate 5-star this year.
You know what, Ryan, if you want to keep, silent, you can. Who are you losing Peyton Bowen to? Who? Give me the team.
Sean, I mean, we've been talking about this for some while, man. Sean, I'll give you a better question. I talked to Brian about this yesterday, the day before, because all the Great House chatter that I think is just BS, if I'm being completely honest, right?
Right.
Who are you losing Jane Greathouse to?
Who?
He didn't like Texas when he was making his decision. Now all of a sudden he likes Texas? Peyton Bowen, right? Peyton Bowen could have been in Oklahoma's class at any time. Why would he go now? Why would he make that decision now? If Peyton Bowen ended up in a different class right now, it's because Peyton Bowen didn't want to be here ultimately, right? That's the end all be all. It's just, and Oklahoma's not in a very good situation right now, for being honest either, right? They're not trying to get in the right direction. What's the other one? Texas A&M? You going to Texas A&M right now? And I hate to tell you this, folks. You don't think that Peyton Bowen was getting offered some stuff behind scenes before he committed to Notre Dame? You don't think that happens? So he's not a kid that's pushed by NIL. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
That's the question I want to ask. Who? He's not. Ohio State's not on his radar. What are we talking about? Florida? LSU? Who? Who are you afraid of? Keon Keeley, I get it. As soon as you heard Alabama, it's okay, I get it. Then you heard Ohio State come. It's okay, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow, some way, because he's flirting with us. We're not. Keon keeps putting us. He keeps putting Notre Dame in the picture for whatever reason. But you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Who? For Great House of Bowen, who? It's November. It's too late for somebody to come in right now and offer a kid. No one's coming in and offering a kid like that right now. and just jumping over everybody. If it would be legendary.
This conversation's also become very, very tired, man. Sean, literally, when I got hired in January, people started talking about this in February. Like, is Peyton Bowen going to decommit? Well, I mean, whatever. Just keep moving.
The only thing that we cannot foresee is if his mother wakes up one day and feels a certain way.
Yeah.
All right. It's kind of what happened with Keon Keeley, right?
Yep. It's yep. All right, couple more left. From CCC, Ryan, aka Squirrely. Okay, so we went from Squirrel Roberts to Squirrely. Why is Notre Dame spending all their time recruit a kid that's just 6'2" at this level of football? Don't they really try to get guys 6'4" and taller? CCC, Austin, Texas. I don't understand. I didn't see what we were talking about when this question came in. So CCC, if you want to put this in the chat, so I can effectively answer this. I mean, what position are we talking about, right? Like, yeah, I don't want an offensive tackle that's 6'2", sure. But I mean, there's a lot of positions that 6'2" is a-okay. So just put it in the chat. I don't follow it.
What position is 6'2" at left tackle is not good.
Yeah, sure. Offensive tackle, you don't want a guy that's 6'2". At guard, it could work. Center, it could definitely work.
Yeah.
Tight end, you don't want a 6'2" guy really either. But wide receiver, 6'2" definitely works. Corners works. Safeties works. Linebackers works. Defensive ends could work. Defensive tackles can work. So, I mean, I'd argue that 6'2" only doesn't work at like 2 to 3 positions, right? So, I generally asking CC.
I think he was talking about Caleb Smith.
Caleb Smith? The wide receiver?
Yeah, someone said he was talking about the wide receiver from Texas.
He's listed at like 6'1" or 6 foot. I mean, are we talking about quarterbacks? Because, I mean, 6'2" at quarterbacks works. Like,
definitely. Especially with the history we've had recently, like we should be giving a standing ovation for signing a 6'2" quarterback at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, CCC, if you could just put it in the chat, because literally I want to answer this question appropriately and well. So, like, throw your position in there. You're talking about the 6'2", because, yeah, I don't know. Because, again, 6'2", outside of offensive tackle and maybe defensive end, depending on how you look at it, in tight ends, like, 6'2" is fine. 6'2" is fine. But, yeah, let us know what you were talking about. I would love to answer. Brandon Plesner said, Ryan, if Notre Dame was to take a second tight end in 2024, would you prefer it to be Brady Prescorn or the tight end who just visited for the Clemson game? The name has escaped me. It's Carter Nelson was the tight end that visited this past weekend. I've not had a chance to talk to Carter about his visit. He doesn't have an offer yet from Notre Dame, but I think it could happen sometime. Brandon, out of those two, Brady Prescorn's a pretty talented player in his own right. I like Carter Nelson a lot. That would be my choice, man. 6'5", long, athletic. He can run. Give me Carter Nelson. That would be my guy. With to pair with Jack Larson, the season Jack Larson's having too. Like, yeah, buddy. Give me it. All right, and Sean, last question from Abent Notre Dame. Notre Dame? I don't know. Have you seen any senior film on Brandon Vernon? I feel like he never gets talked about, and he has very strange ranking by the services. He has a strange ranking from the services, Abent, because he's not a super flashy player. He's more of kind of like a lunch pail player, and he doesn't talk to media at all or doesn't care about social media. Like, that's just not his thing. Brandon Vernon loves football, though, man, and you could see that on film that he loves football. I have not watched his senior film highlight. I don't even know if he has a highlight out there, but I have watched 2 games live on streams of Mentor this year. Brennan, I mean, Sean, that dude is every bit of 280-plus pounds now, man. He is a massive, massive kid. He is a strong side defensive end, 5 tech, waiting to happen, man. Powerful, explosive. Not the most loose athlete of all time, right? Like, he's not going to corner outside track a ton, but like as a guy that's just going to beat dudes up and play physically and convert speed to power, Brennan can play, man. He can play.
Can we retire this Pine Time thing, man?
What's Pine Time? What does that mean?
Well, it's like a hashtag going on. Like,
I never heard of that.
yeah, it's been on Twitter a lot. Can we? Oh man,
I don't know what Pine Time is, man. I don't know.
it just needs it. Look, it's the most disrespectful thing, right? To say this quarterback is 5-1.
Oh, is that what they're doing right now? Is that what they're doing? I haven't seen this.
So we're elevating the person over the team. That's what we're doing.
Nice. That's what we always
elevating
do.
the person over the team. So Notre Dame isn't 5-1. The quarterback is 5-1.
Yeah.
Right. And so now, wait a minute. So now once you take him out of the team concept, then it's only fair that we analyze his individual performance. Because once you take it out of the team concept, you can't say, well, he does what needs to be done to win games. No. You made it individual. So now we're going to look at it as an individual person and analyze his stats accordingly. Instead of keeping him in the team concept and saying, you know what? Notre Dame is 5-1. They're 5-1 with him as a starter.
Oh, is this an Ian Book thing? Ian Book said Pine Time? Is that where it originated?
Yeah. I think he started. I think he did start it. Him and Malik got into it. That's how it all started. Yeah. So I think Benjamin Morrison's like 5-1 as a starter too, if I'm not mistaken, or something like that.
This is funny, man.
What's going, man?
It's my first time hearing about this, man. I really haven't seen the Pine Time thing. That's funny.
Yeah, it's crazy now. It's just like, yeah, former players are the ones that started it. So
interesting. Well, last question, and then we're gonna get out of here, Sean. I know Brandon. Where did Brandon's question go? Brandon Plesner just asked Ryan, did Braden leave? Is it for Clemson? Brandon, I've not had a chance to talk to Braden, touch base with him yet, but to my knowledge, he did. I didn't hear anything that he had canceled his visit or anything, so I'll keep you updated, but I believe so. But I haven't heard any feedback on it. But yeah. But that is going to do it for the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. This is our mailbag section, of course, on the podcast. Before we go, if you could please hit that like button, because I think we had like over 900 people in here at one time, Sean. I think we only have like 200 likes, man. What, you don't like us? How about our interview with Drake Bowen today? If you like Drake Bowen, hit that like button for us, folks. Really appreciate it, okay? So hit that like button, hit that notification bell, subscribe to this podcast. If you're listening to us on your favorite on your favorite podcast platform, as I can't speak, 5-star reviews are very much appreciated. If you want to give us a 1-star, just don't do it, all right? Just beat it. Just close the app. Just keep on moving, all right? From Ryan Roberts, from Sean Davis, we appreciate you all so much for joining Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Thank you for joining the Irish Breakdown Podcast.